Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace episode 38, the flagship show for Sifted Games. I'm Shane Satterfield.
And I'm Matt Kyle.
And we are here to give you some awesome video game news today.
Awesome?
Awesome.
Is it awesome?
Yep, all the games are coming out. We got some great stuff to talk about. Let's see if I have any housekeeping stuff to keep track of. Just to avoid the question being asked at the end of the show, I'm still working on all the GT guys stuff. Otherwise, I know you guys will ask like a million questions at the end of the show about it. Nothing new to report, nothing to update on right now. Just talking to those guys. I think they had their own meeting last night where they got together and kind of tried to figure out what they're going to do. Just kind of got to wait to figure out what they want to do. Obviously, you can't force someone to work somewhere, so who knows if they're going to end up like getting together and doing their own thing.
You can, but it's illegal.
In some countries, I could get away with that. Just not America, unfortunately. So, no real update on that. Site developments, nothing really going on right now. Everything's just, Brent's obviously still working on the site, and there's little things coming online every day.
When's the next Platinum Journey?
Oh, next Platinum Journey should be in about 2 weeks, actually. It takes him 3 weeks.
Do we know what game, or is that a secret?
Batman won the poll, so that is going to be the next one. It was a close battle, though. It won by like 5 exactly. It won by like 5 votes, but Adam is hard at work working on that right now. Also, I should mention we are trying to put together a Sifted quiz show. I put a message on the message board about a month ago asking if people would be interested in it. They are interested in it, so I'm trying to set that up right now in the forums. We actually were going to do a dry run or a trial run this past weekend, but I ended up getting too busy and couldn't do it. So hopefully this weekend. I don't know if you would necessarily ever see that first episode. It depends on how good it turns out. But if it is good, I will publish it just to kind of get an idea if you guys are into it in this current format, maybe get some notes on how to evolve it and make it better. So that is coming down the pike, but no new news on the GT, folks. But we have a lot to get to in today's show, so let's get to the Big Six. Overwatch, Matt. I feel
I don't know. I haven't played it.
I feel like we should have talked about this game before.
Probably. We have mentioned it a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of in passing. I think we mentioned it in like our big like year preview or whatever. And we've talked about it just kind of in passing, but never really.
Yeah. Now that I've gotten past my mental problem that causes me to confuse it with Battleborn.
I think everybody does that. In fact, a perfect example of that was when we originally created the rundowns for today's show. Battleborn was topic number 1 when it was supposed to be Overwatch all along. So I can understand. Like, they're very similar games. They're like MOBA-style shooters with very distinctive characters. In fact, that they are kind of the same exact game, except I resonate with Overwatch's characters a lot more.
Yeah, I think Overwatch has better art.
Definitely better art. But they both have like the same like cartoony style. Yeah. Like, it's very easy to see why people could confuse these two games.
Yeah, I just, I don't really have a lot of interest in either one because it's not really my thing. But if you're going to strap me down and force me to play one, I think I trust Blizzard a little more.
Matt, before this segment of the Big Six is over, I'm going to convince you to change your mind on this game. I have been in the beta.
Drag me out of my apathy, huh?
I don't think I'll even have to drag you. I think when I start explaining it to you, you'll get on board with it. So I have been in the beta for about the last week. I've been playing it for a couple hours a day. If I get a little break here and there, I just kind of jump in and play it for a little while. And I am loving this game, Matt. Loving this game. I'll be perfectly honest with you. Look, every shooter these days has a beta, like everyone. And look, if you're going to have an online play, you kind of have to test the servers, stress test them, things like that. And I've been in all of them. I've played every first-person shooter beta that's probably happened for the last, I don't know how many years. And this is my favorite first-person shooter beta I have ever played. I am enjoying it that much. And why I'm enjoying it is because it is completely different. And I know it may sound crazy. It's completely different from any shooter I've ever played. And here's why. Because it is set up like a MOBA. And one thing I will say that's a little different between Overwatch and Battleborn is that Overwatch isn't set up blatantly like a MOBA. So you don't play a lot of MOBAs, Matt, but basically how it works is you have 3 lanes. And, people are assigned to each lane, and it's your job to push that lane to the other team's base and then destroy the enemy's base. That's the basics of a MOBA. And with not Borderlands. That's pretty funny. With Battleborn, those 3 lanes are very clear. Like, you can see the mid lane goes straight to the base. You have, like, the top and the bot lanes that go around the sides, basically. This game, the way the maps are set up, it's not, like, blatantly 3 lanes. So that's one way it doesn't immediately look like a MOBA. But how it does look like a MOBA is the characters. And this is one thing that I love about MOBAs, and I think a big reason why the genre has become huge is because each character in the game is very carefully thought out and is its own individual entity. So, for instance, you're playing Battlefront, or you're playing Call of Duty. Sure, you can use a different gun, although those guns all kind of fire the same. But you all use guns, you all use grenades, and the controls are always the same. You always throw a grenade with the right shoulder button. You always fire with the trigger button. This game is set up like a MOBA in that every single character controls completely differently. So there are some characters where if you squeeze like the left trigger, it will fire like an alt fire. And so what you have to do is you have to learn the ins and outs of each character, learn what their strengths and weaknesses are, learn what their special attacks are, and then figure out how those work with other characters. And so every character you play feels like a completely different and unique experience. And I'm not just saying that. It's not lip service. Like, literally, like, it's extremely different depending on what character you play with. And some people may not like this because what it does is it forces you how to learn to play each character. Like, you can't just be generally good at it, I guess. I mean, look, your Twitch skills, how fast you can aim and things like that, sure, that matters across the board. But everything else you have to relearn with each character. And I love that about this game. I love that about MOBAs as well. It's like playing one character is not the same as playing another.
Well, that's why I've always, I've never gotten deep into the MOBA thing, but I've always felt the closest analog to a MOBA game, the MOBA genre was fighting games.
Yeah.
Because it's about the characters, it's about learning each character, it's about learning the matchups.
But I would even counter that with even fighting games like Street Fighter V, for instance. A lot of characters have half circle towards, hit a button, quarter circle towards, hit a button for their moves. Like, that's not really how this game works at all. That is where it's most like a MOBA, is that each character is like its own beast. And I guarantee you, people are going to start cosplaying these characters, and they're going to become like little pop culture symbols, just like some of the characters in League of Legends are. And you're going to see people at conventions dressing like them, t-shirts for the characters, things like that. Very smart on Blizzard's part as far as marketing and merchandising games. Like, it's a huge boon for it. The game so far, what is included in the beta is pretty much just one game mode. Basically, it's like a capture and hold mode where the point moves, and each character is like a class. So, for instance, you have tanks, you have heavy melee characters, you have really quick players who can teleport around and are more for attacking and assault. And when you start each match and you're kind of in the matchmaking screen, it will show you the roles on your team that have yet to be filled. So you can make sure that even if people don't know what they're doing, there's kind of a guy there to let them know, like, hey, we're missing a tank here who can absorb damage while the other guys come in and, like, deal the damage. Before the match starts, you're kind of in this room where you can just like try out all your weapons and everything, because again, you have to kind of relearn every character and every time you go to play. So you're in a room where you can kind of like pre-match, you can try out the weapons, the attacks. If you don't like it, you can swap right on the fly in that room. You can also swap on the fly while you're playing at any time. You can kind of switch your characters out. It's just really refreshing, because what I found is there's some people who were in the first beta who are really freaking good at the game. And I learned so much just by playing with those guys, watching what they do. Like, there's healers. There's people who are just support characters who just run around and heal. Or you support spells, because there's spells, there's crazy weapons. Like, the creativity in the game is awesome. Like, I'm understanding now why the press on this game has been so positive over the last like month and a half, as far as like the press who got into the first beta. It's crazy addictive. You feel like you learn something every match to get a little bit better with your character. You learn how to work with other characters better with every match that you play. Characters complement each other. There's certain pairs that work well together when paired up. It's unlike any shooter I've ever played before. And that's saying something. After all the shooters, I'm a big fan of first-person shooters, and I kind of make it my point to play as many as I can to have a good frame of reference on them. And I am just eating this game up. It also doesn't hurt that the thing looks amazing and runs like a beast on my PC, and I have a good rig. I built it about a year and a half ago, and it was pretty close to the top of the line for then. Now it's starting to show some cracks in its facade a little bit, but I run it on Ultra, and it runs at like 144 frames pegged. Like, I think Blizzard has got a big hit on his hands. Like, it's another shooter that doesn't have great single-player content, so it'll be interesting to see how they price the game, and what kind of uproar there is over yet another shooter that doesn't really have a legitimate campaign.
It is interesting because, like, when I see a game like this, of this nature, like, I instantly just assume it's free-to-play.
Yeah.
I presume it is not.
Well, I don't know. It might be free-to-play, but the pricing that I'm talking about is, like, how much do they price
per character,
per
skins.
Because that's where you make your money.
Model.
That's
yeah.
the League of Legends model, yeah. And it'll be interesting to see, too, how they release the new characters for this. There's a ton in this beta. Like, I think there's 16 to 20 characters already in the beta. That might even be the full roster. I think they may be giving it to you all right away. But, you know, the League of Legends tactic is when they put out a new character, they make the character OP or overpowered, because that makes people buy the character. And then after that rush of sales is over, then they nerf the character for competitive reasons, or because the next LCS is coming up or whatever, and they know the pros will really abuse the OP nature of the character. So then they'll nerf it, and then, you know, the sales will dovetail out. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that model. If they do the same thing, like, oh, here's this new character, and by the way, he just obliterates like everybody else for the first like 2 weeks. Everybody buys him, they nerf him. Suddenly he's not in every game anymore.
That doesn't sound like Blizzard's style, really.
It doesn't, but you know, I feel like Blizzard has handled Hearthstone pretty well as far as how they've done updates for that game. So I feel like there's a pretty good template there to be pretty confident in how they'll do it. And look, you know, the lack of a campaign is pretty disappointing, because with these characters, I feel like, again, it can make a really good campaign. And I don't know if you remember the first trailer they showed for this, but like, these characters would make an awesome campaign just based on that trailer. So it's a little bit of a shame that there's not a crazy robust single-player element, but I'm telling you, like...
Chat's saying that it's $40 on PC and $60 on consoles.
Yeah, so that's a little steep.
Yeah, but future classes are free, they say, so that's not bad.
So all characters are free?
According to W. Matthew.
Okay, well, that's good news. But still, you're going to run into that same argument of $60 for a shooter with no real campaign to it.
Yeah, well...
And Battleborn does have more of a fleshed out campaign.
It's no Star Wars, but if it plays interesting, that could be better.
What's really going to be interesting is watching how this game and Battleborn market themselves, and what kind of dollars are put behind it, and which of these games comes out ahead and why. I've played very little of Battleborn. I think I played like 15 minutes of it at E3 this past year. I've played hours and hours of Overwatch at this point. So probably not too fair for me to say, oh, you know, Overwatch is the better game at this point, because I haven't had enough with Battleborn to really know. But one thing I would say is that Battleborn is really going to have to bring it if it wants to compete with this game, because it's so solid on so many levels already. That I can't, you know, once they get all the data from the beta and start incorporating it and start balancing it even better. The other thing I liked about it, too, is that, like, I was able to jump into a game and I wasn't just getting slaughtered, like, right out of the gate. Like, sure, people were playing that were a lot better than me. But there's so many opportunities to work with other characters in the game that once you kind of pick up on that, it's very easy to kind of be that parasite following around the better players. And sometimes they'll pick up on it and they'll, like, focus on you to make sure that they heal you and things like that. There's health pickups around the maps you can pick up. They don't give you a ton of health, but it might be enough to just, like, get through that next skirmish without dying. So there's a nice little rebounding mechanic there. I'm just really impressed with it. And look, I know you didn't get to play it, so I knew this conversation was going to be a little one-sided. But I like it so much that I felt like we really needed to dedicate some time to the game on GameFace. Because
I do enjoy some support class playing in multiplayer now and then, so that might be enough for me to take a look.
Yeah, I mean, when I first played the first game, I tried to find, like, the generic, like, assault rifle guy, and couldn't find one. Like, there literally wasn't one. Like, which at first I was like, oh, what's this? Like, where's the guy that I always play in first-person shooters? And then I just started looking around. I actually ended up settling on as my favorite character, this character that's basically a ripoff of Samus. It's a girl in, like, a power armor suit with a helmet and, like, arm cannons. And she has like an unlimited like rocket launcher on one arm, and then and like a lot of traversal's a big part of it. Some characters can jump like 100 yards in the sky. Some of them just have one jump. Some have a double jump. Some have grapple hooks that they can use. So there's like a lot of verticality to the game, and there's a definite advantage to characters who can scale to the tops of buildings because you have that vantage point up there, and other characters don't notice you. Balancing is going to be tricky, and that's something that League of Legends gets right, even though they manipulate it a little bit when they release new characters. Like ultimately, a week or two later, like that character is balanced perfectly with the rest of the game. Granted, there's a couple characters in League of Legends that people would argue still aren't great or aren't perfectly balanced. Master Yi, I'm looking at you, but for the most part, they do a great job of, despite all these characters having so many different characteristics and different things they can do and hundreds of other characters that they can interact with, they find a way to make it all work. And that's going to be the magic sauce for this. I mean, granted, you got 20 characters, it's a little easier than with a game like League of Legends where there's literally like hundreds. But I'm really loving this game. And in full disclosure, I should say, I do play MOBAs. I do play League of Legends. I do play Dota 2. I did play Heroes of the Storm. That didn't last very long. I don't know if that bodes well for Blizzard in this case. And I don't really play Smite. But I do play a lot of League. I play a lot of Dota. And so I feel like I have a pretty good frame of reference on how this feels. And here's the thing, like, if you don't play MOBAs, you probably wouldn't notice this was a MOBA. You just say, this is a crazy shooter with awesome characters. But because I play that genre, I see the parallels in how they're doing things. And again, it's masked pretty well because the maps aren't just blatantly like 3 lanes that you have to attack and defend. So, based on the beta, man, I am loving this game. I highly recommend, if you guys can get into the beta, that you do it. Again, it looks great without taxing your rig. You don't need some crazy machine to run it and run it well. Yeah, so if you can get in it, I definitely recommend trying to get on the beta. In fact, I recommend that to you as well. Did I convince you to give it a try?
You convinced me to give it a try.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, again, like, multiplayer shooter stuff just doesn't generally tend to grab me too much. But if there's the variety of things to do, as you say, then maybe something in there will. Yeah,
because it's funny, it's such a big deal was made about how Call of Duty has gone to this traversal mechanic for its last 2 games, increasing traversal. Well, I mean, the traversal in this just blows both of those games away. I mean, there are certain characters in here that are far more agile than any Call of Duty game. But then there's some that are also like stuck on the ground. They're like heavies, and like they have to stay on the ground, but they have shields that they can put up to protect them from damage. There's just something for everybody in this game, no matter what kind of player you are. And I don't necessarily feel like all first-person shooters are that way. Like, they have expanded and increased like their latitude in what they do over the last 4 or 5 years. But
I like this guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, you watch all the different characters in this game, and everyone is different. Like, this guy's obviously an engineer who can build turrets. And, the weapons are really imaginative and cool, and like, I'm loving it, man. I'm loving Overwatch. That's all I can really say about it. So, Sifters, keep an eye on the early access channel on Sifted. If there's another beta that comes up, maybe they'll do an open beta eventually.
I would think.
Which is another thing that tends to happen with every shooter these days. They do like the closed ones, and then they open it up to everybody.
Just like The Division.
Yeah, The Division's open right now to everyone. Or is that ended already?
I think that might be over.
Yeah. And Hitman's going into open beta, I believe, in a week as well for everybody, although it's not necessarily a shooter. So, here's what I'm saying about Overwatch. The hype is real, people. When you see all the positive stuff being written about it elsewhere, they're not wrong. It is a really, really fun game, really diverse. You don't have to like MOBAs to appreciate it. So, highly recommend it. Try to get on the beta. I'm really excited to check out the final product. So, let's move on to the next topic of the Big Six. So, VR helmet number 2. Cards on the table now. Stuff was leaking out the past week. They're like, they're going to announce the price and the release date within a week.
Yeah, with the pre-orders
right.
going up.
And the next day, like, everything broke.
Yeah, just get ahead of it, I guess.
Yep, so $800, $800 US dollars,
$799 US dollars.
April 1st, is that right? Pre-orders on the 29th of
right,
February,
yeah.
April 1st launch, I believe.
Not a good launch day.
No.
Don't launch on April 1st.
Yeah, April 1st is a dicey date to do anything, really, if you want a lot of people to show up.
Don't even leave the house if you can help it at this point. If you work in internet or gaming or anything, like this, like you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah. So, first of all, how are you feeling about that price, Matt?
Nope. I think you're right. I think it's the best hardware of the three major HMDs, head-mounted displays. But no, like $800 for something that like there's no there yet. Like I need some software. I also need it also seems to need its own room, which I can't give it. Like it really looks like the best hardware, like by a pretty big margin, but like
it doesn't necessarily need its own room. It needs a room where you can push everything to the edge of the room, I guess.
Yeah, I don't have one of those.
Yeah, most people don't if you live in an apartment. Most people don't have a spare room where they can just shove everything out of the way.
I don't have a VR room yet. I'm sure one day that'll be like having your own office in the spare bedroom, but not right now.
Yeah, so $800, April 1st. Comes with everything, though. You get it with controllers, and you get like the sensors that have to be installed on the ceiling, which I think is the craziest part of the Vive. Is that you have
There's
to
some commitment here. You got to break the screwdriver out for this one.
Yeah, I mean, and a drill probably.
Drills and drywall hooks. It's a process.
Yep. So, but you get all that for $800. Whereas you start looking at Oculus, you don't get any controllers with Oculus. All you get is an Xbox One controller with it. I'm guessing each one of those controllers is going to cost $100. That'll get you at $200 right there. Here's the other, at least for me personally, the other discouraging thing about Vive is that Valve released on Steam a tool that you could run on your PC to figure out if it's going to be able to handle Vive. And so I ran that tool, and it told me I need a new video card, that some games might work with my current configuration, but chances are if I want to play Vive exclusive games, I need a new $400 to $500 video card, basically. I need a GTX 980 Ti, basically. And what's that right now, $400, $500? Or is it more even?
Might be more depending on which model you're after.
Yeah.
Like the good, I don't know. I haven't looked at that in a while. Not for about a year.
Yeah. So
I ran the Steam VR thing, and I'm good.
I believe you're good. I guarantee you're good. If your rig isn't good, no one's rig is good. But, so I was disappointed to see that because
I'm a little shocked at how high the requirements are for it, though.
Well,
like people with like 970s getting 970 titaniums being told, like, yeah, you might want to bump it up a bit, son. It's just like, whoa, that's no joke.
Look, that's the proof in the pudding that shows you that it's going to be the best technology.
But who's making stuff for it?
Right. Here's my thing. It's like, so I need to buy it. I want this one. I want Vive. Of the three, Vive is what I want. If price was no object and I got to choose one of them, I would choose Vive. Although I agree with you. Where's the content? Well, the thing kind of is that most games that work for Oculus are also going to work for Vive. But you're right. Where's the exclusive stuff for Vive? Because that's not what I'm going to buy a Vive for. I'm going to buy a Vive because it is a spatial virtual reality hardware.
Stuff that takes advantage of it.
Yeah, it tracks you in an environment, and it's like you're walking around in this it's like the closest thing to a holodeck. Whereas with Oculus and PlayStation VR, you just kind of sit there and move your head. This tracks you as you move around the room. And so I can't do it, Matt. I cannot spend $800 for Vive and then have to spend another $500. I can't spend $1,300 to get on the VR train, man. I can't do it. And this is what I want, but I'm going to have to compromise, unfortunately.
I think a lot of people are going to have to, and that's just the people that are that actively interested in this VR, the first wave VR thing, which I gotta say, while I am a believer that eventually VR will be a thing, possibly the thing, I don't think it's these. I think we're looking down the barrel of the Atari 2600 ColecoVision and the television.
You think?
Right now of VR. It's way at the beginning, and I think I think the way most people are going to experience VR for the first time is going to be like we did in the arcades back in the day. I think we're going to have like VR centers, similar to like laser tag centers or like Dave & Buster's stuff, and there's stuff like that now where you can I think there was a story on Sifted that was curated where it was like you put the headset on, you get like the things in your hands, and they run you through what's basically like a haunted house maze, and like you have to like push stuff aside, and like everything is an equivalent in the headset that you're seeing. You're pushing like cobwebs aside, and it's like strings hanging from the ceiling and stuff, and it's all very. But I think that's how VR will sort of be experienced by the average consumer for quite like a few years until things get cheap enough to sort of justify inclusion in the home market for the average consumer, and then those kind of like more center style things will vanish just the same way arcades did.
Yeah, look, I think you're getting your money's worth with Vive. And when you talk about Oculus at $600, Vive at $800, if you just look at the hardware, you're getting you're getting your money's worth, but also the experience.
I don't think they're overpriced for what they are. I should make that clear. Like, I don't think they're gouging us with those prices. I think that's just what they have to charge at this point.
And I think it's going to fail and fail miserably. Mm-hmm. At that price, I mean, you are really talking only the rich boys with rich boy toys. Mm-hmm. I mean, no one's going to be able to afford it. And if you can't afford it, and if people can't afford it, and there's no installed base for it, no one's going to make games for it. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be one of these things where you have this rush of games at the beginning, and as time goes on, as all the developers realize, I can't make any money off of this, it's going to end up becoming a port dump for Oculus games. And you're going to end up like Nintendo. You're going to get like 2 or 3 exclusive experiences per year on the Vive. And that's not good enough for $1,300, man. It's just not. In addition to this other rig that I've built that also costs a lot of money, granted, a year and a half ago or whatever, but, all in, think about what you're talking about here. Because I don't think a $1,500 PC will run the Vive, personally, which is what they're saying with
Oculus.
$1,500 all in with Oculus. Yeah. Like a $1,000 PC is not going to run Vive. So you're talking about at least $1,500, $2,000 PC, and then another $800. I mean, you're talking about almost $3,000 all in to play Vive. Like,
to play what?
Yeah,
that's the thing. Is like there's nothing there for me to be like, oh, I will spend $3,000 to be an X-wing pilot or be what in this kind of thing, or to fight with a lightsaber in your. And
it's coming out in like 2 months.
And it's like, what do you? I don't. I mean, I hope everybody involved in the VR thing is both consumer and product makers. I hope they're all ready to be in for the long haul, because that's what this is.
I mean, look, I'm not spending $20 or almost $2,000 to play Job Simulator. Right. Like, I'm just not doing it, man. It's not worth it. Like,
I love Rez, but give me a break.
I don't think Rez is even coming for Vive. No. So I don't know, man. Like, it's weird, because when they announced the price at first, I was like, that's not bad. That's about what I thought it was going to be. And then I ran the test on Steam and realized that my machine wasn't capable. And, look, I could probably sell my old video card and get a couple $100 for it. So, but I don't want to. What I want to do is take that card and put it in another PC that's older so that it has a decent video card, one of the machines here in the office. So, I mean, technically, I could, get a card for $300 net after I would sell that old card, but man, I just don't know. It's discouraging. Like, again, it was like I was excited. I was like, oh, $800, and then I found out I needed a new card, and I was like, well, crap. Like, convince my wife to spend that much money on VR is a really tough sell.
Yeah, and then what if you don't use it?
Right. Then it's like a reminder.
You're sitting around waiting around for the killer app to show up, and it's who knows?
I almost feel like I can almost prophesize Vive being like the Nintendo 64, like that same model where you're getting like one exclusive game like every 6 months to like 10 months, and some are like really great and live up to expectations, and some of them that you wait 4 or 5 months for end up being not that great. But a Nintendo 64 costs $249. There's a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, I can see a lot of parallels to sort of the weird peripheral thing and just sort of that slowly dying off feature. Because I mean, I don't know how future-proof these things are. I don't know if are you still going to be able to use your Vive for VR games 10 years from now?
You would think so.
You would hope so.
I mean, obviously something else will come out that has better fidelity, but you would think it would, at least for a while, would be backwards compatible with that new tech. You would hope.
I mean, that's a whole new level.
When you're spending that much money, you don't want to hope, though. You need to know.
Exactly.
It's like hoping that there's going to be a good game. Like, there is not...
I think the vast majority of people are going to be in the wait-and-see mode for these things.
And that's the thing. Like, look, if HTC is 6 months into sales of Vive, and there are like 500,000 of them out there, what's the HTC going to do? They're going to bail.
Yeah.
Like...
Is not. I mean, do we have any notion of what sales expectations are?
Not at all. Nope. They haven't announced really anything of what they expect. And I don't think any VR company is going to, because it's very likely that it doesn't hit it. Yeah. And so...
Well, maybe they just also don't know. Like, I don't know how you even research that.
But once you put that number out there and you don't hit it,
now you've got
there's no way to spin it.
Yeah.
If you don't put the number out there, no matter how low the sales are, you can always say it's sold about or above our expectations, and you don't end up with egg on your face. So I'm really discouraged, to be honest with you. I was really excited for Vive, and I doubt we're going to get 1 cent for free to cover it. So that's the other thing, like the hole in coverage, like.
Yeah, you actually do kind of have a good room for it here.
Oh, it'd be perfect. Like, I could totally set it up in here, and we could do live streams. Like, that's one thing that's going to be really cool with VR, if you can make sure that you get the video feed of what someone's seeing and can get that out of it, and then, picture-in-picture of you with the helmet on, especially with Vive. Like, it could be really interesting to watch people play.
Or what if, can it be done, I don't know what that signal would be like, but what if you could watch a Let's Play of a VR game in VR? In your own Vive at home, so like while you're playing the game, I can stream your feed and I can see what you're seeing. But then it's like someone else is moving your head around.
Oh yeah, you're out of control. It might make you sick.
It'd make you dizzy. Yeah. I don't know.
But what I'm saying is the opportunities here for some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Here, the other angle, we don't want to talk about this too much because we've talked about PlayStation VR so much on the show already. But this certainly opens the door for Sony to be the most successful.
Certainly the cheapest.
Well, it also makes me nervous because now, for Sony to come in as the cheap guy, they can come in at like $500. Like,
I don't
still
think,
high.
But again, I don't think that's going to sell too well. I mean, if
they're saying rumors
if that headset is more than the system, like the average person is going to look at it and be like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like especially considering how much stuff you need to play it.
Imagine if they bundle it in and the bundle's like $800.
$800. Yeah. Well, the system's like what, $350 now with like a bundled Call of Duty or a bundled Uncharted.
Yeah.
Damn, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
VR is starting to really look dicey, man. It really is. Like, I think I'm starting to come around to your way of thinking. Like, it may just be too early.
It's too much money. It's too much. And
that's what happens when you launch a technology too early. It's too expensive.
Yeah.
But
and I love, like, I mean, I'm not saying the tech's bad. I'm not saying that I don't believe it. I haven't used Vive, but I have used Oculus and PSVR, and I think they're great. Like, Rez is amazing. Eve Valkyrie is great. As a flight sim fan, space flight sim fan from way back, Eve Valkyrie's like, just leave me here all day. I'll play this all day.
Yeah.
But, like, will I spend $600 to do that? No. Like, and like, to say nothing to the people that think it's really cool and want to get involved, but, just literally don't have that kind of money to throw at an entertainment product.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's unfeasible just from a financial perspective for most Americans, I would think.
Well, a lot of people, when they talk about VR, like to point to Apple and the iPhone, and how when Apple first announced the iPhone and was like, it's $600, people were like, oh my gosh, you're crazy. And I think even Pachter was like, Apple's nuts.
I wasn't, because the thing is, you can justify a phone to yourself. Oh, I could get calls and work email, and I can look at this. Like you get around that by kind of making it.
Well, you live with your phone. It's like your little fairy that follows you around. It's like your Navi.
It's my mini map.
Yeah, it is. Literally, like it'll also be your mini map.
Hey, listen.
But here's the other angle of that too: is that the phone companies subsidize it, so you never really pay.
You never really pay $600
for it. Maybe that's the model that these VR headsets are going to have to eventually move to really get mass market penetration, is some kind of a subsidy. But you don't have a service making money off of it, except for maybe Steam.
Yeah.
Maybe Valve needs to
subsidize it. I don't know what
subsidize
service you really do through that. I mean, unless it's porn.
Yeah.
Like maybe.
You're right.
Like,
that's the one thing.
That really is where the revolution would come from.
There's there's
enough horny guys that would hawk up $600 to have like a revolution in porn in their living room. I guarantee you. But that again, that can drive adoption like it did with DVD, and VHS, particularly VHS. That's one of the main reasons. A lot of people believe that's one of the main reasons VHS beat beta.
Oh yeah, that's a known fact. The reason that VHS won was because of porn.
But that doesn't win the war for you, but it does win you the major first battle and gets you into the hands of consumers. I still think the way to do it is to do these things like these VR centers, like these sort of family fun center ideas. Make it something people have fun doing, just like arcade games were. Make it something that everybody wanted a home version of Pac-Man.
Yeah.
People were so desperate for that, they bought that terrible 2600 version.
Yeah.
So, like, I think make it a desirable thing, make it something people have a positive experience with and something they relate to is like, oh, that's a high-end experience, it's a high-end entertainment product. And then if you eventually can like, kind of finagle it, and that's going to create its own titles. It's going to create its own games people want a home version of.
You're right. Yeah.
And then you can kind of spin that into like, now you can have this thing that you normally have to go out to like a Dave & Buster's equivalent to have. Now you can have it in your home. It's like the reverse of Dave & Buster's convincing you to spend $1 to play Fruit Ninja.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's a feasible idea. It's going to take years, and someone's got to really, be willing to jump in for the long haul. Like I'm talking like a decade.
Yeah.
But maybe Facebook is.
I mean, at this point, Sony has the inside track because even if they come in at 400 or 500 and it is like 800 all in, I mean, most people don't have beastly PCs like gamers do, but most people don't. They have something that can
work. A laptop, or they have they don't have something that does that.
Yeah, so they look at the all-in cost of VR in that way, and they're like, well, I have to buy a $1,500 rig or a $1,000 rig for Oculus. Suddenly, that $800 for PlayStation VR starts to look a little more inviting.
Yeah. So, I hope Sony has an eye towards the PlayStation 5 on this. Like, this is training wheels. This is starting. Surely anyone who buys PlayStation VR will be able to carry that headset over to the 5.
Yeah.
PlayStation 5. But, and Sony's a multimedia company. I would hope they'd have, they've got a plan for their movie stuff. They got a plan for their music stuff. They got, there's got to be more to it. But I would hope that like their real eye now would be towards we have to design the PlayStation 5 around this experience, but not force. You can't connect it. You can't do the Xbox One Connect thing because that was a torpedo to the hull.
You have to make it an option.
You have to make it an option, but you also have to make it a worthy option. I think that's going to be because Sony does have a history of like trying these devices and just the iToy, the PlayStation 4 camera. The Move, which is coming back again as a controller for this thing. Yeah. That book thing that no one remembers, the Harry Potter author did. Like who remembers that? Anyone?
All the augmented reality stuff they did with Vita and everything.
And now the guy who's doing the HoloLens said that it might not ever come out now.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it was yesterday or the day before. He said there's like a technology thing, and there was a whole thing in Time Magazine, an article about like when they demoed it earlier. It might have been like E3 or something, and like the guy asks the Time reporter like, how much do you think this would cost after having demoed it?
Yeah.
And he's like $250, and the guy goes, there's a computer in this thing, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, $350 with the, and the guy just thanked him for his honesty and sent him on his way.
Yeah.
And it's like, this thing's it might just be too early for this stuff. It's exciting and it's cool, and everybody that sees it and experiences it loves it and wants it. But do they $1,000 want it? Do they $500 want it?
Yeah, I mean it's looking more and more like Sony has the inside track on success for VR. I don't know that it will be.
Sony's going to play the long game. I think Sony is in the best position right now.
Yeah. So, people, no Vive for me. It really sucks, man. I'm going to beg Valve for one, maybe.
Oculus, though? Are you still going to do it?
I don't even know, man. Like, I feel like if there's this other superior experience out there, it's so hard. Because here's the thing. Like, I probably need a new video card for Oculus as well. Like, if Oculus put out a tool that, like, looked at your computer and probably... I mean, I have a GTX 980. Like, that's...
There was something... I mean... What did I run? I ran like the 3D Mark test earlier for like, and that's the benchmark for that. That was related to Oculus, and they were like, you have to be over 9,000 to be Oculus ready.
Yeah.
And that seemed like the requirements for that were much lower than what the Vive is.
Oh, Oculus is lower. There's no doubt about it. But I still think it would be like my rig would be marginal. Like I probably could upgrade to a $300 card instead of a $500 card. Maybe, I don't know. But it's really discouraging. Like I've been excited about virtual reality my whole life, and now I feel like the door is kind of being closed in my face when it's finally here. Like, I've tried them all. I know what PlayStation VR is about, and it is undoubtedly the cut rate version of all of them. So, but ultimately, that may end up being where I have to go.
The Atari 2600 was the best seller.
It was. You're right. Yeah, Pac's been mentioning that all week too, because people have been hitting him up for quotes and things like that. And he's saying, like, the cheapest one, like, usually wins. He's like, there's a reason McDonald's sells
the most powerful system,
1 billion hamburgers a year, and, you know, expensive hamburger stands
the
sell
powerful
300.
system doesn't generally win the generation, especially in consoles.
Yeah.
Like PlayStation 1, not the most powerful. PlayStation 2, not the most powerful.
Wii,
Xbox 360,
not the most powerful.
Wii, not the most powerful at all.
Yeah.
In fact, this might be the first gen in a very long time.
Because it always comes down to the games. But
Yeah.
none of these things have any games, so... I mean, honestly, Sony probably has the best software lineup right now of all three. Like, at least it's marketed.
Because they have one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
and sure, a lot, it may not be able to run, maybe we won't get No Man's Sky in VR because the system can't run it like in VR. But at least, like, we've seen, a lineup and some ideas. And, of all the games, I liked Eve Valkyrie when I played it, but I gotta say, of all the VR games that are kind of concretely announced right now, I think Ace Combat might be the one I'd most prefer to play. Because it's a known quantity, I played them before, I like them, and it's going to work really well as a VR game.
I would love, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but Oculus has not put out a press release saying we had X number of pre-orders. Mm-hmm. That's a little concerning.
Well, they sold out their first wave, but like that first wave was also...
They wouldn't say how big
it was.
Right.
That first wave also includes, several thousand backers that were guaranteed their free unit.
Yeah.
And like, man, should have jumped in on that.
I know.
$300.
I know.
That turned out to be a big deal. Yeah.
I almost got it too, man. Like, I was right on the
I came
borderline.
close. I'm just like, $300. It'll be cheaper than that when it comes out. I mean, come on. And especially because there was no like guarantee you were going to get a retail version or anything.
And I remember especially the day when it was like the last day to get like the DK2, and I was like, man, it's decision time. If not, I'm gonna have to wait until the retail comes out. I wasn't even really thinking about like what the benefits would be of it. I was just like, I don't want to wait to have VR, and I didn't. I bailed on it, and now I regret it because you could have got something that was $600 for $350 and played VR the whole damn time. Imagine if they had said that at the get-go, like, if you buy this, we'll give you the final retail unit for free. Imagine how many of those DK kits they would have sold.
Yeah, well, I think there's a good reason they didn't say that.
Yeah, of course.
But they took care of their early adopters.
They did, yeah. I gotta hand it to them.
Yeah.
But look, they have more money than God. It's
True.
Facebook.
True. That photo of Zuckerberg walking down the aisle with
great.
all those guys in VR, and that one dude who's just like with that like huge frown on his face. It's like, what's he seeing? What does he see? I posted that on Sifted in
I saw it. It was hilarious.
And somebody responded like, he's frowning because he has to come out someday. I'm just like, that's a good spin. I like that. I like that spin. I'm going to go with that explanation.
All right, so it's time to move on. I think it's pretty clear you're not buying one. We've known that for weeks about you. You weren't interested in buying any of these, and I cannot buy the Vive.
I am in Overwatch mode.
Honestly,
I am waiting and seeing.
Honestly, I think even if my wife gave me the okay to buy Vive, I just don't think I could do it in good conscience.
Well, because you're a gamer.
Yeah.
You got to see the games first.
I just also feel like spending that much money for something that isn't necessarily finished, it sends a bad message. It's like people say, you always vote with your money, with how you spend your money. And I feel like throwing $800 towards that thing would be sending a bad message. Also, if the thing tanks and I can get it for $400 in like 2 months.
Maybe it's just because we're old, but it's just like I feel like we know at this point, like you don't spend that kind of money on potential.
Yeah, it's risk. It's a big risk.
You spend it for the thing you want.
Unless you're dirty rich. In that case, you just buy whatever the hell you want. So
even then,
it's dicey. Yeah, you're right.
You don't get to be that rich by being stupid.
You're right. That's a good point. All right, let's move on to the next topic. Nintendo, NX, more stuff coming out every day, it seems like. More rumors this week that it's coming out this year.
Hurry up, E3. Hurry up and get here.
And more rumors that
I gotta see this thing.
Zelda Q4 for both systems. I mean, there's some developer...
I should have put that in my fantasy draft.
Yeah.
NX coming out in Q4 with Zelda. Because
So,
I'll tell you, if the NX doesn't come out this year, I say you don't see Zelda this year. I think that your Twilight Princess the hell out of it.
They can't do that.
You would think.
It has to come out. You're just saying that because I have Zelda on my fantasy team.
No, I'm saying it because I think that's the absolute truth. I think if Zelda comes out this year, the NX comes out this year.
I disagree with that. But so we're not actually talking about Zelda. What we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about roundabout whether it's coming out this year or not. And I feel like we got a pretty good clue this week that it's not. So one of the developers behind Ori and the Blind Forest, which is a game we both love, gorgeous game, you're seeing it right now, an Xbox One game, Xbox One and PC. The developer basically went on NeoGAF and posted a big diatribe about how his studio has been trying to contact Nintendo to get development kits for NX. And not only did Nintendo deny them a development kit, it never even bothered to respond to the developer about whether they were getting them or not. And so...
It's not like these guys are unknowns.
Exactly. And so the developer went on NeoGAF and just blew off steam. And was basically like, you can't operate this way in this day and age in the modern industry.
Well, especially because this is why you're in trouble.
Well, I would say that's part of the reasons why they're in trouble, because they have no third-party support. But here's the thing. So Nintendo's always done it this way, which... probably wrong and the wrong way to go about it, particularly like he said in today's day and age, like you can't really operate that way. So just saying Nintendo's always done it that way, that's an excuse that I hate for anything when people say that's the way it's always been. Like I hate when people say that. Like that just means like you're satisfied with what you've got and you're not demanding progress or progression. So Nintendo's always done it this way. It goes out and it has meetings with the partners it wants to partner with. EA, there was rumors swirling this week that Nintendo was meeting with EA. Of course it is. It's meeting with every major third-party publisher right now. Breaking news, Sifted exclusive. Nintendo's meeting with Capcom. Nintendo's meeting with Namco. It is meeting with everybody right now.
Probably not Konami.
I mean, why bother? They have no games.
We have a pachinko collection on NX.
So newsflash, Nintendo is meeting with publishers right now, trying to get them to make NX games. No shit, Sherlock. That's not a story. So it's always done it this way. It goes out to the major publishers. It tries to get them on for launch. It usually succeeds. It gets them on for launch, and then nobody buys the games, and then the third-party publishers go away. That's how it works. So here's what happens. All those games come out, and then there's nothing. Like with the Wii U, 21, 22 games at launch, and then after launch, it was just flatline. Because the third-party publishers, all their games didn't sell at launch because, in all honesty, all the games were games that were already available for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. So you're basically counting on anybody who buys a Wii U doesn't own these other consoles, which is foolish. Sure, there's Nintendo fans out there who maybe only owned a Wii, but there aren't that many. So the games don't sell because they were rehashes of games that people had already played with gamepad functionality added to them. So nobody buys them. Publishers bail. Ubisoft, in fact, was so bold as to say, we have another game done for Wii U that we're not going to release because we don't feel like anyone will buy it. So the problem is, once that happens, there's nothing there to fill in the gaps. And that's why they need developers, like the developer behind the excellent Ori and the Blind Forest, to be there creating games to fill in those holes and gaps. And that, to me, is where Nintendo is being very short-sighted with this. It's also really discouraging because it shows that it hasn't learned like any lessons. Even with the new CEO, it's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and expecting a different result. It's
the definition of Nintendo.
Yeah, I mean, it also shows to me that the system's probably not coming out this year. If you don't have enough dev kits to send to a developer like that, which, look, they're an indie developer, but top shelf indie developer, has created amazing games, could make an amazing game for your system, and you don't have kits for those people, it just shows me that the system is still really early if they're not mass producing the dev kits yet. So, leads me to believe that it's not coming out this year at all. But I do not agree with you that also means that Zelda's not coming out this year. I think when worse comes to worse, they will release it.
It is possible they want you to buy Zelda twice, but
well, they're doing it with Twilight Princess right now.
True, but that's at least several years apart. I don't know. I think you may be giving Nintendo a little too much credit on this one.
What do you mean?
I think they may have a limited number of dev kits. I think they may be handing them out to their third-party people that they are after. I think they want ports of current upcoming games that will be alongside the other systems. So if you buy an NX, you don't feel like you're missing out by moving there instead of not having a PlayStation or whatever. So Mass Effect Andromeda keeps coming in my head, but that's not coming out this year, so it's not a good example. But going to Activision.
Yes, it is.
No. going to Activision and saying, we want this year's Call of Duty on the NX. Can you do it with this hardware? Can we want this year's not Assassin's Creed, but whatever is taking Assassin's Creed's launch place, launch
Watch
day
Dogs
place. Probably
2.
Watch Dogs 2, yeah. So I think they're going to them and saying, can you give us ports by this time this year? And they're either saying like, yeah, sure, or no, because I think it's going to be a more standard architecture that doesn't require them to like kind of come up. Because like there was a story that Ubisoft, ex-Ubisoft employee posted kind of his whole history, and he told the story of how like he and this little team were handed the Wii U dev kit and said like make Assassin's Creed 3 work on it. And they didn't know if they could, but they got it done. They got all these, the gamepad function. Basically, it was like they had to make a special version of the game for that.
That's been their problem with Nintendo for the last 10 years.
I'm hoping that the NX is not going to be that. It's just going to be a more standard
than 10
system.
Years.
So it doesn't convince me that they are, that they're not. It's not coming out this year. It just convinces me that like they're probably making the same mistakes again.
How can they, though?
I don't know, but according to the Ori and the Blind Forest guy, they just did.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't you want that team on your team?
Yeah.
Not the team on your team or whatever.
Especially
But like that's like, I mean, it's not like it's like these fly-by-night dudes showing up and be like, hey, we want to be part of Nintendo. These guys won DICE Awards. These guys are like known. Like, I mean, Ori and the Blind Forest
and
is
won
like,
awards at the Game Awards.
Yeah, it's not like these are some fly-by-night weirdos who want to like, I want to put Binding of Isaac would even be welcome on that. I mean, it is on Nintendo systems, but it's like, it's not like some out of nowhere thing. It's like some of the most talented indie devs who made this really good game want to do something for you, maybe something new, maybe not just an Ori port. They want to do a new game on Nintendo's new hardware. Like, why wouldn't you talk to these people?
Yeah. Here's the thing: Nintendo is walled off like in its own world. Like, they're the only. So, when you work in the industry, you meet PR people who work in-house for Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo. When you meet Nintendo reps who actually work like in the development part of the company and aren't like PR or marketing, they're the only publisher where when I meet those people, I ask them if they play games for other systems. Like, you talk to someone at Microsoft, it's a no-brainer. Sure, they play PlayStation games and they play Nintendo games, but for some reason, when you meet people from Nintendo, it's not like a given that they would. It's almost like you think like if they were to go on Twitter and tweet like really loving Black Ops 3 on PlayStation 4, that like when they went to work the next day, like somebody might give them like a talking to. Like that's kind of the atmosphere at Nintendo. I mean, it goes back to that whole thing where the one guy that worked at the Treehouse like went on that podcast and said a couple things that weren't even really all that bad and still got fired from Nintendo. It's like they have a reputation in the industry and they've earned it. It's not just like people have fabricated it out of nowhere. They live in this weird, like, boxed off from everybody else.
Something of a treehouse, one might say.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they're aloof, I guess is the best way to put it, and they don't always look at what everyone else is doing. And look, in some ways that's good because it causes them to innovate and think about things differently, but there's just certain, like, staples of how the industry works where you have to play ball if you want to be successful. And one of those is getting your dev kits out really early to developers so they can make games for your hardware. Like, that's why I don't think it's coming out this year. I think Nintendo is going to do that. I think it is going to get it. I think it's figured it out. I think it knows, like, its biggest detriment was that there wasn't enough software for Wii U. Regardless of how successful or unsuccessful the gamepad was, the biggest problem was no third-party support and no content for the platform. And Nintendo is not stupid. I mean, it does things its own way. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. But it's not so dumb that it won't look around the industry and see how things work and realize where their system is a detriment to the success of its products. So I think the guy jumping the gun, I think he's hearing all these rumors, and if he's on NeoGAF, he's seeing the rumors every day, because there's NeoGAF, some of the Nintendo fanboys on NeoGAF are hardcore.
Oh, yeah.
It will latch on to any little bit of anything to start a thread or post in a thread. And so if you're living on NeoGAF and you're seeing this every day and you're spending a lot of time on them, I can see
living
where...
Living on NeoGAF would be a great reality show.
It would be. I can see where a developer, if he spent a lot of time on there, might be like oh my God, like the train is passing us by. Like there's all these leaks coming out, which half of them probably aren't even true. But he's seeing this stuff coming out. He's like, why aren't we involved in this? Why don't I know anything about the NX? And I'm a developer. And it goes back to what Pachter said in Pachter Factor like a month or two ago. He talks to developers and publishers, and none of them had dev kits. So I just refuse to believe that Nintendo would be so dumb to repeat the same mistakes again. I think it won't. I think when it has dev kits, it will get them out to these people. I don't think it's going to be an exclusive thing at all. I think it knows what it needs to do. What's holding it back is announcing the system. Because it's so paranoid about people leaking information about it. Like, look, no one's going to copy your ideas, Nintendo. If they do, they're going to wait till next generation and copy it like Sony tried to do with Move, and it failed miserably. Like,
I think we've pretty much shown that, like, copying Nintendo doesn't work out for anyone, really. Even Nintendo, sometimes.
Yeah.
And at this point, no one's in any position to do it. Like, like, Sony's committed to how they're doing the PS4. Microsoft's committed to how they're doing the Xbox One. Like, no one's going to pivot just to, like... whatever idea you have is probably not good enough to warrant a complete corporate changeover.
Or overhaul,
like, you know, it's like, I feel like you're... get out there and do it.
Oh, we've invested $2 billion in R&D for the PlayStation 5. Well, let's just trash all that money we spent because Nintendo's doing this thing that now we need to pivot and do. Right. Like, it's not going to happen.
No,
like,
you're not going to suddenly convince Sony. It's like, oh, the PlayStation 5 should include the Vita 2.
Yeah, and look, if your idea is so easy to replicate that it doesn't cost that much money, then it's probably not as good as you think anyway. So, I just
and really, I think what the NX should be or needs to be is a modern video game console with Nintendo games on it.
Right.
That's it.
That'd be a good start. Yeah.
Give me the 2016 version of the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Done. That's all I want.
I mean, I know that's all you want. I don't think that would be enough to make Nintendo a smashing success with NX, personally. But...
No, but it might at least help it be competitive again. Like, because like for how long have we been? You talk about Microsoft and Sony. Oh, and Nintendo's over here.
Yeah.
You know. And sometimes,
the Wii
sometimes Nintendo's over. Well, the Wii, yeah, but Nintendo's over here because Nintendo is off in its own fucking crazy multi-billion selling world. It was like, the Wii is going crazy, but we have nothing to talk about because everybody's just playing carnival games. You know, like meanwhile, it's kind of its own entity, and sometimes that's really good for Nintendo, and sometimes it's really bad.
It's always good for Nintendo. It's just not always good for everybody else, which is why third parties take off because they're like, dude, the only games people buy on your system is your games. And look, there's some other stuff that Nintendo does to kind of ensure that happens that pisses publishers off. And Nintendo doesn't really do like cross-marketing deals with third-party publishers. They don't do bundles with third-party publishers. Like, you're not going to see like an Assassin's Creed NX bundle. At least you wouldn't unless they change their stance. There was no Assassin's Creed Wii U bundle. There was no Ninja Gaiden Razor's Edge bundle. There was no Batman.
Probably not a bad...
Right. But I'm just saying, like, they don't work with third-party publishers the way that Sony and Microsoft do. And look, again, Pachter said it on Pachter Factor. The publishers love this. Even though they're getting less for each game, they're totally fine if they can get a little less and get it packed in with the system because it guarantees to sell more games.
Basically got a captive audience.
You have the long tail now for revenue with DLC and things like that. So Nintendo just doesn't play ball with third-party publishers in any way, shape, or form, and it finally got to the point where it's more than bit them in the ass. It's bit their ass clean off. Like, that's pretty much what's happened. And I think Nintendo is too smart to not realize that. I think it will change the way it works with the third-party publishers for the NX. It has to, or it will not succeed.
I'm sure there's a lot of people in Nintendo that realize that. My question remains, can those people that are smart enough to realize that convince the very conservative board of directors at Nintendo Japan that is what they need to do?
The bigger question is, what's going to happen in Nintendo when that mobile money starts rolling in? Mm-hmm. Because, right now, Nintendo's like, oh, we're just dipping our foot in the water.
Right, but when you're fighting like the tooth and nail battle in the console market and all of a sudden Pokemon Go starts pouring gold pieces into your coffers, that other direction is going to look pretty nice.
That's exactly what I'm saying, man. Like, it could, Nintendo mobile future, not that far-fetched, because I believe its games on mobile are just going to annihilate any amount of money it ever made on the DS or the 3DS.
Look, man,
or the
if
Game Boy.
Pokemon Go is what it has the potential to be, like, that could be a watershed moment in mobile gaming, period.
For sure. Yeah.
Like, that could change everything.
Yep.
And let's not forget, Nintendo has a history of doing that, like stepping into a pool that's already been swum in and being like, hey, what if we did it like this? And then, boom, it explodes. They did it with the NES.
Yeah.
They did it with, they did it with the analog controller. To a large degree. I mean, the Saturn beat them to the punch for analog, but the Nintendo 64 made it mandatory when they figured out Mario 64 and how that all worked. The games still take lessons from Mario 64 to this day.
And
the Z trigger on Zelda,
time,
the Z trigger targeting thing, still used. Used today.
Yeah, and it will be probably for a long time.
So, like, that, Pokemon Go should be the thing everybody's got their eye on. I mean, the NX is a big question mark, but I think, like, Pokemon Go, if they, because... like that kind of get out there and do the real Pokemon thing with with the augmented reality stuff, like that could be huge. It could be huge and addictive on the level the original Pokemon was.
Yep, not only do I not think that NX is coming this year, I also think it would be a monumental mistake to release NX this year.
I think you're probably right, but I still think it's coming this year.
Wow. Well, we shall see. It's time to move on to the next topic of the Big Six. So this is a fun one. Unless you're a game that we pick. So
yeah.
So Failcast 2016. Basically, we're trying to forecast games that we think are going to do really poor sales-wise. Not with the critics, but
not
with
that they'll
sales.
be bad games.
Yeah.
Just
prominent games, basically, that we feel like may not get a fair shake, or even if they do, they ultimately do not do well at retail. Matt, we're both going to pick 2 games apiece. Mm-hmm. Matt, what is your first pick?
My first pick, which dovetails nicely into what we're just about, is Star Fox Zero. Yeah. I played Star Fox at E3 last year, and I really liked it. I liked it a lot. I'm a fan of that series, and it's one of the games that has pushed me to get a Wii U, which I did on Black Friday for the right price.
By the way, I'm really surprised to hear you say that you really liked it.
I did, because I like flying stuff, and I like the extra aiming thing. I'm not saying I loved it. I'm just saying, like, oh, it's cool, Star Fox. Star Fox is bad. I like Star Fox. I do
too, but I didn't like that aiming with the gamepad thing at all.
I kind of did. I don't blame people that didn't, but I was like, oh, this kind of
it works.
It works. It's fine. But I don't think it's going to sell. I think, I've already seen even like the diehard fans.
They're so desperate for software on Wii U.
Yeah, no, but I don't think it matters. Like, I've seen too many people who are like diehard Nintendo fans even say like, oh, I don't like that. They don't think it looks good. It looks too much of a rehash, or like, I don't want to aim with a thing. Assuming you even do that, because it sounds like they might have revamped this thing from the ground up a little bit with a delay. And I think a lot of people have just sort of moved on from the Wii U in general. I don't think there's enough people left to make it a big hit. Star Fox has also always kind of sold low for a Nintendo main franchise, and frankly, I think this is going to be,
Yeah, I think Star Fox 64 sold a couple million copies.
Because there was nothing else like it at the time, but like, they haven't given us any, Star Fox Adventures wasn't, really the same thing. But like,
not even close.
It's been relegated to like, DS games and...
Namco made one. It was called Star Fox Assault, which was like a
strategy
on-foot
shooter
third-person shooter where you had like a rocket launcher on your shoulder. Like, here's the problem: like Nintendo will not make these games itself. Like, why does it keep farming out this series to everybody else? Why doesn't it make its own first-party game?
Metroid got farmed out to Team Ninja. It's like, I think this is going to be the same thing as with like something like Other M, where it's just like it's not going to perform to expectations, and they're going to kick the series back in the vault, and we'll see it referenced periodically by like Animal Crossing and Smash Brothers, and that'll be that for years and years and years.
Why does this game look so bad? I mean,
I don't know.
Platinum made Bayonetta 2 on the Wii U that looks amazing. Why does this game look so crap? I mean, the environments are just barren, and yet the ships and everything are made out of like 8 polygons. And obviously, I'm exaggerating, but where's all the processing power going for this game, man? I don't get it.
Well, in part, it's an art style choice, and I think part of it is they're being held back by the original Star Fox look. Like, it's like, why don't they just like redesign the R-Wings? The R-Wings,
I mean, look, they made
look
the
like
R-Wing
they look
when
because
they really could use 8 polygons to build the R-Wing.
Like, all the stuff in this game was designed when it really was that low poly on the Super Nintendo. Like, it's, why not revamp it into something like recognizable but like more modern looking? And they just don't do it. I think, continually the lesson of the Wii U with, that they're going to, right or wrong, I think they're going to take, the lesson they're going to take from the Wii U, a lot of these things is like, their old franchises done the way they've always been done don't quite work. They don't work the way they wanted them to work. Whereas the new stuff like Splatoon or Mario Maker blow up. And like that's what they're going to focus on is like new IP and new ways to use the old IP. I think their days after Star Fox Zero, their days of farming out their old at least B tier IP out to like other developers to make like what everybody loves, but a new one. Yeah. And like I think they're just done with that after this.
Now, when you say fail, that's relatively speaking. Where are you saying sales are going to come in for this game?
I don't really know. Like I don't know what
a failure for a first-party Nintendo game would be like less than $1 million.
I think it'll sell less than $1 million.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it'll sell more than $1 million.
You think?
Yeah.
I just
think people are so desperate to have something to play on their Wii U.
I think most of the people that are desperate to have something to play on their Wii U have moved on somewhere else at this point. I don't think they want. You'd be
surprised at the dedication of Nintendo.
But I don't think they want this either.
Yeah.
Like, look at how you're reacting to this thing. Like, I don't think it looks that bad personally, but like, just because like my expectations are kind of low, I guess, for a Star Fox game. But like, I've seen tons, even like diehard Nintendo fans I know look at that and they're like, oh, it looks like crap. I don't want. Why would I want to play that? It looks terrible. And it's like. Well, like if you're even not selling it to the people, these are people that like, were on all the right trains. When I was skeptical about Splatoon, they were like, no, it's going to be awesome. And like, it's going to be a huge hit. It's going to be amazing. I'm like, I don't know. And like, they were right. It was a huge hit. It's probably one of their biggest new IPs since not Pokemon. Since Pikmin.
Yeah.
Mario Maker, I don't know if I really want to play Mario levels that other people make who's any good. Like, no, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be like, it's going to revolutionize Mario. And they were right. There you go. But those same people are looking at this and being like, this is just shovelware. This is Star Fox shovelware. And I don't know if I agree with them on that because I liked what I played of it. But I feel like I'm in the minority on that. I don't think it's going to sell very well.
It looks like a B tier game, which is something that we don't really see anymore. Like the B tier has kind of disappeared over the last like 5 to 7 years.
Although if you're really honest, that's what Star Fox is. Always has been.
It's been B tier for Nintendo, but not B tier overall. I'm talking about like overall. Like this looks like some game that was made by some random Japanese developer like 12 years ago. Like
it's a little barren.
It's really barren. Look at it. Like, there's just a bitmap back there, too. I mean, I don't know, man. I agree with you. It's not going to sell up to typical Nintendo standards, but I do think it will sell 1 million copies.
Well, I hope you're right, because that might be the only thing to prevent Star Fox from being thrown in the bin for another generation at
Forever.
least.
Yeah, you're right. And look, they haven't had a hit with Star Fox since Star Fox 64. Yeah. So it's been like, wow.
I really think this is Star Fox's last shot.
It's been like 20 years since they had a hit with Star Fox. Yeah. So that's crazy.
So I think it's time, if this thing doesn't sell, you're going to see Star Fox and Smash Brothers, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. All right, it's time for my first pick.
Hang on to that amiibo, kids.
My pick for Failcast 2016, my first pick is Mirror's Edge Catalyst. First game didn't sell well. This game's been delayed. Just looking at like how it tracks on Sifted as far as the interest from our users, it seems like it's all but evaporated already, like the interest in the game. They haven't put out a ton of media for it, but the last thing that came out did not do really well on the site.
I think maybe some of that might be people are just like, just give it to me already.
It could be. I mean, look, it has a built-in audience. Like, again, I don't think it's going to tank, like, sell 100,000 copies tank. But when you're talking about EA selling like a million copies of this game is not worth the investment that they've put into it and the investment they're going to put into marketing it and all that type of stuff. So I'm excited for the game. I can't wait to play it. I was a real big fan of the first one. I just think it's a niche style game. I think it has a niche look to it. They weren't able to convince people to buy it last time, and the game was pretty well executed the first time around. I was honestly shocked to hear that EA was making a sequel to this game based upon how the first one did. I appreciate it very much. I feel like it's EA kind of throwing a bone to the fans of the game and the people who are fans of just more interesting games in general. Kind of like what they did with Unravel as well. I kind of like the new direction EA's going here with not just making sure that they're selling like crazy Star Wars Battlefront with every release. So
they always kind of go through a phase like that every once in a while. I think the first Mirror's Edge was kind of a product of that.
Yeah. Well, they were putting out a lot more games back then, too. I mean, they had a couple games that were, like, misses, like Dante's Inferno and things like that around that same era. So,
oh, man, I always forget they're the ones who made that.
Yeah, well, they polished it. Or did they develop it?
I don't remember who actually developed that. But that was, like, that and this and Dead Space, which turned out well for them. And so,
well, the first couple.
Yeah.
Anyway, before they drove that series into the ground as well. So, again, I think I'm going to really like this game. I think it's probably going to end up being a good game, but I think the reviews for it, I think this game could get like 9.5 aggregate, and I still feel like it would be lucky to sell more than 1 million copies.
And I can't really pin down why that is, but I feel like I agree. Because I'm looking forward to it. I love the first Mirror's Edge. I even like the iOS game, but like because I just like that world. But yeah, I feel like this game's going to get ignored by the mainstream public.
Yeah, I mean the other thing too is if it came out like now, which I think is when it was originally supposed to come out, I feel like it would have had a better chance because releases. There's like 2 big ones a month right now. And so if you're the 3rd big one in a month right now, you probably aren't going to get overshadowed. But the farther you go into the year, the more competition you have. And putting this game... And here's the problem. It's like putting this game up against like any first-person shooter. Like a lot of people are going to go with the first-person shooter instead of the quote-unquote weird stylized parkour game. So... I hope I'm wrong. I hope it does really well. I hope it sells 10 million copies and we get another one, but I have a feeling that that's not going to be the case, and this will probably be the last Mirror's Edge we ever get a chance to play, unless somewhere down the line, some little indie developer gets a license from EA for a discount. And
EA doesn't seem to do that much.
Nope.
Otherwise, we probably would have seen a new Starflight by now.
Exactly. So, so that's my first pick. Matt, time for your second pick.
My second pick is another game that I think I'm going to like, but I don't think is going to sell well, Mafia 3.
Yeah. You're on your fantasy team.
Yes. I think it's going to review well. I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be completely overlooked.
Why?
I just, like, on the strength of remembering how they marketed the last two, which is not really, outside of the usual in-industry sort of game enthusiast channels. I feel
it's 2K though. I mean,
it is 2K, but it's like
2K has stepped up its marketing game, man.
They have, but I just don't know what you can do in a commercial for this thing that's gonna like sell it beyond. It's like, oh, it's another crime game. I'm excited because the Mafia games are always a little deeper than that. They're a little better told than that, and there's some care and some love in those games, especially Mafia 2. Even though they didn't do anything with the open world, that open world was really well realized.
Really compelling,
yeah. Yeah, even if it was just the thing you drove through to get to the next, checkpoint. But like I feel like people are going to see this thing and it's be like, oh, it's like, a wannabe LA Noire or something like that. I don't know if it's going to, I just don't see how you make this resonate with, the people that make something a 5 million seller.
2K is great at marketing though, man.
They are, but I don't know. Mafia.
They can sell snow cones to an Eskimo, like.
Yeah, but it's Mafia. It's also Mafia 3, and people are like, oh, I didn't play the other two, so there's that kind of weird thing to it. I just don't. I feel like this one's just gonna slide under the radar, and
maybe for me, it's that my expectations are pretty low for it already. Like, I don't think the other Mafias sold that well.
No.
I think they did 1 million, 2 million when it was all said and done, like worldwide. So maybe my expectations are too low to be disappointed by the sales of this game, but. I would guess it's probably going to do around the same, probably 1 million, 2 million sales when it's all said and done.
Maybe, but I can see it being less than that.
Which you're right, though, because that's not a given. Because you look at Just Cause 3.
Mm-hmm. Look at Street Fighter 5.
Yeah, in Japan. Did you see that?
Yeah.
It only sold like 40,000 copies in the first week.
I mean, to be fair, they're not counting digital.
Right.
That. So I think a lot of people... I bought it digital.
Yeah.
A lot of people are buying this, something that has to be online all the time.
Why not?
Something that's all multiplayer.
Yeah.
Why not just buy the digital one, not have to put the disc in when you decide to play a couple rounds, right?
Yeah.
So I think, but still, that's a massive shift from, physical to digital for a game that's been, traditionally a much stronger seller. And so I don't, I don't think it's impossible, especially this year where, so many strong games are coming out. People got to make decisions.
Yeah, they do.
And people clearly.
Well, then you toss VR into the whole thing, and if
Yeah.
people who are trying to get VR, if someone buys a VR helmet, their chances of buying 5 games in a year is drastically reduced. And the games that suffer, it's not Uncharted 4 that suffers.
Or more. Remember, if you buy the Oculus, that's 10 games.
I know. And look, it's not games like Uncharted that loses sales,
No.
and it's not games like Zelda Wii U that loses
It's
sales.
that game you're interested in, but you can live without if you have to, like Just Cause 3 or Mafia 3.
Just Cause 3 must have tanked hard, dude. I don't think I ever saw it in the top 10 of the month for MPD. It never cracked the top 10.
And that game was advertised to hell and back.
Yep, and Mad Max, that's another one.
Yep.
I mean, again, those are comparable games. They're open world games, maybe a little bit of a niche kind of interest.
Made by the same company, actually. And even Mad Max even was riding the coattails of
the film,
one of the best action movies of the century.
Yeah,
and
for real.
Nothing.
Yeah, it did not do well. So I could see that.
Should have made Furiosa a playable character, folks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the main character in the game isn't even the main character from the movie, though, right? I mean,
Mad Max?
Yeah.
It's connected
Roughly
somehow, but
looks
it's like
him.
but as much as any of the, oh no, it's not actually Tom Hardy.
Right.
It doesn't look like Tom Hardy.
Right.
No.
So why would they bring in? You just mean the character.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But I mean, it is supposed to be like the main bad guy is supposed to be the other son of Immortan Joe from the movie, and like there's the War Boys are in there, and the buzzards with the spiky.
Right. Right.
It's clearly the same universe.
Yeah.
But it's and I think at one point you run into the little girl that he has the flashbacks of in the movie, but that's not very well explained.
Right.
So it was there. I mean, it was there if you wanted to play Mad Max, if you saw Mad Max,
cared.
No one cared.
Yeah.
So I did. I cared.
I think I'd agree with you on Mafia. I still think it'll end up doing $1 million or $2 million when it's all said and done. But
I hope so. I like that
by 2K
series.
standards, that's a monumental failure, by the way.
Yeah,
like
2K didn't make a game hoping for $1 million.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Any game.
Because it also doesn't put out a ton of games. So when it does, it needs to make sure that they sell. So
and I would think that if you're going to make a third Mafia game after this amount of time, I mean, it's been 5 years?
Yeah.
Almost 6 years since Mafia 2 came out. I think this is their play to kind of turn this into a bigger thing.
Yeah.
They want to parlay this into a not $1 million, $2 million seller. They want a $5-6 million seller out of this thing, and I just don't think they're going to get it.
I think I'd agree with that. My final pick is...
Which I was going to pick, but I figured you'd already picked it.
Yeah, is Homefront: The Revolution.
Yeah.
Maybe this isn't a fair pick, because...
It's not very
maybe
nice.
Maybe the expectations aren't that great for this, but look,
But why would you make it then?
Right. The first game sold crazy well, though. That's the thing, which is why I included it, because the first game was probably one of the bigger surprising successes of the entire last generation.
That was a marketing campaign that should be studied.
Because the game did not review well.
Yeah.
It did not review well at all. And they played on, we've talked about it on the show before, the whole patriotism angle. They're invading America, and we got to drive them off of our land, blah, blah, blah. Well, here's the thing, that gimmick doesn't really hold weight anymore. And this game is going to have to survive on its quality and being unique in some way, and it's just not. There's really nothing unique about this game. All the betas that have happened.
Even the looking at the weapon, even that's from Deus Ex.
Yeah,
There's
right.
nothing there.
How many people are going to look at this game and be like, you know what? I'm going to put off buying the new Call of Duty for this.
No.
Or I'm going to put off buying the new Battlefield for this if it comes out this year, which is looking increasingly like it's not.
And it's also isn't this May?
Yeah.
So it's right next to Doom.
Yeah. It's just going to get swallowed up. It sucks for Deep Silver, too, because it needs this game to do well.
It's not. I don't know why. I mean,
Deep Silver lost Dead Island 2. That's in flux, and it doesn't really have anything for this whole half of the year.
I can only assume that why do you make this game?
I mean, look at this game. If I showed you this footage of this game and took away the HUD and said, "Tell me what this game is," you would never be able to
say
tell
it's
me what the game was.
It's black and white, the game, because there's no color here.
I mean, it could just be one of dozens of first-person shooters. There's no hook.
It reminds me of those
I mean, the hook used to be we're fighting on American soil,
right?
But
this doesn't look like anything. It's it reminds me of, you remember back in the early and mid 2000s, the PC on the PC, they used to get this flood of Eastern European developed shooters that just came out of nowhere and then vanished, and usually they were published by Encore.
The B level games I was talking about earlier,
and some of them were C level.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, but But like that's what it reminded. This game reminds me of like
Yeah.
those games where it's just like, oh, that's funny. Like maybe we'll get a free copy and like I'll play it when we review it for like and give it like a 3 out of 5. Like
Right.
that's what this reminds me of.
Well, the first game ended up right around, I think its aggregate ended up being like a 4.7 or something like that. So I think
It wasn't good.
the campaign was like 3 hours long and the multiplayer was okay, but
Yeah, it was part of that kind of like period of like a lot of like shooters that like there was a really good concept, but it was because I think of this. I think of Turning Point: Fall of Liberty, with the Nazis
really dug one up there, Matt.
invading. I think of Darkest Days, which was the time traveling shooter where you went to like Civil War era.
Yeah.
And at one point, our friend Abby Heppy found a rock that killed you if you stepped on it.
Yeah.
Like it was that, and then there was Legendary, which was like legendary creatures invade New York City, and it's like all these like that's a good idea. There's a good game in there in all those ideas, but they weren't the games they made.
Here's the only unique thing that I've seen in this game so far is riding a motorcycle through like a house. At the beginning of it, like he jumped out of a house. Yeah.
I bet you'll do something cooler than that at Uncharted.
I'm betting that you do. Yes, very much so. So that's my final pick for Failcast 2016. Oof. Maybe we'll check in on our predictions and our prognostications later on in the year and catch up on it. That'd be something good for like our last episode.
A lot of these are early in the early year stuff, so maybe we can do a second half of the year.
No, that's true. Or maybe we can pick like a Q4 Failcast.
Yeah.
That might regenerate some interest in it. But yeah, so those are our picks for games that we think are not going to sell as well as expected in 2016. It's time to move on to the next topic. Kojima. We haven't talked about Kojima enough on this show, Matt. I think we need to talk about him even more.
Poor ignored Kojima. No one talks about Kojima.
Yeah, they talk about him a lot. In fact, he just like decided to like go and visit some studios, and it was so funny to watch like all these websites like reporting on now he is at this studio in Scandinavia. Now he's at this studio outside of London. Now, so what? Like, he's just catching up with people. He hasn't had a chance.
Just traveling.
It's not a story. Like, people are following his, like, Instagram account and, like, his Twitter
account. Like he's a Kardashian.
Yeah, it was like that. And so the end of his run was at DICE, where Polygon scored a great interview with him, where we talked about this a little bit last week, about, a little bit about what happened with Konami, but more about his new studio and his first new game. Hasn't said a whole lot about the new game. Basically, all he said was it's going to be edgy, and Sony is leaving him alone and letting him do what he wants, which was something that he kind of demanded when he signed the deal with them.
You paid for the disc, but you'll only need the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now that we've had like a week to kind of think about all this, the purpose of this topic is for us to share what we hope that he makes. And so a lot of people only know him as, the guy who makes Metal Gear, but he's actually made a pretty vast variety of games throughout the years. Right now you're looking at Boktai for the Nintendo... Tayo! Right. So this game came with like a light sensor in the cartridge, and it's a vampire hunting game, as you can probably surmise from watching this footage. And basically what you would have to do is when you got the vampires down to a certain level of health, you'd have to go out into the sunlight and hold the system up in the air so the cartridge could pick up the sun, and that is how you finally destroyed the vampires.
And it's how you reloaded your gun. You reloaded your sun gun.
Yeah, exactly. You had to go into the sunlight, and there were a couple like light bulbs that you could use that would trick it or whatever. But yeah, you had to fill up like your solar gun. You can see that meter depleting down there.
But really, he was just trying to get us to go outside.
Yeah, right. By the way, Kojima is the only person on the planet who could go to a publisher and convince them that releasing a game like this was a good idea. Because Boktai completely tanked. The cartridges obviously cost a lot more money to produce because it had the whole light sensor technology in it. Maybe Konami wasn't so bad after all.
Yeah, I mean, they gave him a lot. They gave him a lot of shots.
They sure did. So
you remember when he was pitching? Actually, I guess they talked about this in retrospect. But when he was pitching Metal Gear Solid 2, his plan was he wanted the game to cost $5, and if you died, you had to go buy another disc.
Right? Yeah.
Ahead of his time on the microtransactions.
Ahead of his time, I guess so. Some would call it ahead of his time. Some would call it like an early bastard. But so here's.
You early bastard. I like that.
That would be a good thing for like sifted t-shirts. Just have it say early bastard on the back. So he built Zoe, which he didn't work on like crazy firsthand. It was like his concept, and he kind of had a splinter team that worked on the game, and he was kind of the overlord, the director of the game. He didn't really go elbows deep in producing it himself.
So they had some input on the story.
Oh yeah, because it was bad.
Yeah.
So he did this. He built Snatcher early in his career. That was kind of probably his biggest departure. It's also one of those earliest games. Kind of him trying to find his footing, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was him trying to like move into that real kind of cinematic movie. Because let's face it, Kojima's a frustrated filmmaker.
He is, and he even mentioned in the interview with Polygon that he still wants to make a film. Not only does he want to make a film still, he wants to do everything. He wants to write it, he wants to direct it, and he wants to produce it.
He played as like a damn fiddle.
More like he wants to doom it. Like,
can you imagine like drama on the level of like Metal Gear Solid 4 or 5
in
like
a
on
film?
a film? Well, I can't imagine. That's called the Resident Evil movies. But
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
It's let's just not do that.
Kojima needs that good buddy in his life who comes to him and can be honest with him and needs to tell him stop. Like, I mean, everybody needs that person in their life.
Bro.
For most people, it's like your wife or your husband. They're the person who's able to be completely brutally honest with you and be like, hey, you're screwing this up, you're doing this wrong, and you can take it without getting pissed off. Like,
we had hoped it would be Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, he needs someone in his life to be like, you are not a movie director.
No.
You make games that people love, and that's what you should do. And, by the way, you should probably let somebody else direct the cinemas in your great video games.
Yeah, I think the best he could do for himself right now is to sort of take a stance as sort of an idea man in charge of a team who then executes on his ideas. Because, like, I don't know how much of that he's been doing already, but, like, there's been a lot of situations where I'm just like, that could have used a rewrite.
Oh, a lot of it. Like, even Metal Gear Solid 5, like...
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, who knows what the story of that was if it was allowed to be a finished game.
It would have been even more bloated.
Probably.
I mean, it definitely would have been.
Well, it's like, I know there's people that love his stories, and it's just, I don't get it.
I don't get it either.
Like, they're all sort of on the level of, say, like, Escape from New York, which clearly was a big influence on him. Like, it kind of, but like, they're all
changed his life.
Yeah, but they're all sort of like
To us, it was like a kind of cool, corny '80s film.
Yeah, it's like everything's like an '80s picture, like from a B picture from the '80s, and like that's about as far as these games go. Which, granted, is sort of like pretty good for a video game, but at the same time, like, there doesn't seem to be a lot of ambition beyond that.
No.
So I don't really understand, especially in the sense that, like, once you get into the visual fidelity and the gameplay variety of Metal Gear Solid 5, you would expect you'd want, like, the dramatic element to kind of elevate with that, and it just doesn't.
Okay, so with all this in mind, what kind of game do we want him to make?
A collaboration.
Really?
With other people.
Yeah? I mean, that's kind of what he's been saying he's been doing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think he needs more eyes on the product. I think he's going to have a lot of eyes on him from the consumer side, but from, like, the creative side, he needs a lot of input. I think if he really wants to be serious about this film thing, he's going to have to start, like, listening to other opinions and critiques from other professionals. And I am willing to bet that he's not taking a lot of that to heart when it comes to the narrative and the storytelling. Frankly, I would like to see him try another Snatcher kind of thing. I'd like to see him give another shot at not that Metal Gear isn't cyberpunk or wasn't by the end of it, but, like, I would like to see him sort of take another shot at that sort of Blade Runner-y, like, idea. Maybe a little more noir. Which I think is where his strengths have always lain, because that sort of turgid, like, over-the-top storytelling is sort of part and parcel with noir, and, like, you can kind of get away with it more. It's a more stylized form, and he's always done that really, all the way down to, like, that one chapter in Metal Gear Solid 4 where Snake's running around like a rainy city in his trench coat, like looks good. Like, he's got some good stuff in there, and Snatcher was some, like, quality Blade Runner plagiarism. So
Yeah.
I'd like to see him give that another shot. Like step away from the paramilitary kind of military idea and sort of go real hard into this sort of cyberpunk side of things.
I would like to see him, and he was already on this path. I would like to see him make a horror game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one thing I would say is that PT kind of discourages that a little bit, because I wasn't a big fan of PT and the way PT played.
But again, I don't think PT was going to play like Silent Hills did.
I mean, I just
Silent
think
Hills looks like a much more standard Silent Hill game.
Well, I think it was like a litmus test to see if it would appeal with people. And look, I don't know if people say that they like it because it kind of became this legendary thing because the game was canceled, or if they really liked playing it.
I think it's a little bit of. I mean, it was a new thing, especially if you hadn't played the Stanley Parable, which is what it's a steal from.
Yeah.
But it's a horror version of Stanley Parable, and now it looks like it's kind of sparking its own subgenre with things like Layers of Fear, and like I think you're going to see a lot of indie games that sort of like took the PT idea and are making PT's not going to come out. Let's just make our own version of that, and like that could be a successful thing. But I don't know. I
want
wonder
like a third-person horror game.
Right. Well, I think that's what Silent Hills was going to be, most likely. I wonder how much of the horror idea was from Kojima's interest and how much of it was because they got Del Toro.
Yeah.
So I wonder, without Del Toro, maybe Del Toro's still involved, I don't know. Without him, I wonder how much interest Kojima has in the horror idea. Because, I mean, again, that wouldn't be a bad idea. He's always gotten real close to the horror stuff, even in his sci-fi things.
Yeah, exactly.
So to see him fully take that ball and run with it would be interesting.
I would just like to see a horror game made with that level of commitment. Because, I mean, love it or hate it, love Kojima or hate Kojima, you can't deny the craftsmanship, the attention to detail.
He's got a vision, that's for sure.
That he puts into everything that he does. And like most horror games, like Resident Evil is kind of like schlocky and like B-movie, like tongue-in-cheek horror. I mean, especially now. Like, I can't remember the last time I was scared by a Resident Evil game. Probably Resident Evil 4.
Forever, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like you say, like Resident Evil is more of like the schlocky, like grindhouse horror movie, whereas like even, Escape from New York may not be the greatest, top of the mountain to aim for in terms of narrative fidelity, but let's not forget that John Carpenter is a very talented director when he's at the height of his power in something like The Thing.
Yeah.
Horror, again, it'd be interesting to follow that path.
Kojima is also really creative, and I feel like horror games have kind of gotten into this rut where I can't remember the last one that I played that I was really affected by, and I was like, oh damn, like, that has kind of shifted the way I'm going to look at this style of game going forward.
Silent Hill 2?
Maybe. Like, it might actually be like the first Silent Hill. Or Resident Evil 4, but what that did was like take it away.
4 was an action game. Like Resident Evil 4 was an action game.
Right. So. Well, I mean, look, I'm not saying it needs to be an action game or survival horror. I'm just saying that's the type of mood and tone I want his next game to have. Because I just don't feel like there's enough really creative people working in that genre anymore. Like, Mikami doesn't really do it anymore. He came back for a little bit, worked on it. He works on a game here and there, but then it's always like negligible how much influence he actually has on the game. Like, I just feel like, one, it's something he's really interested in. 2, it's an area of games that has gone neglected far too long. And 3, I would just love to see that style of game where he uses his way of creatively thinking about video games on that style of a game. I just think it would make something really special. I also would love to hear the soundtrack that he would curate or either create for a game like that. Like, one thing I will say is he has really, really good taste in music. In fact, if you're ever looking for new music to listen to, go on his Twitter feed and look at whatever album he's listening to last. Like, he has really good taste in music. And so I would love to hear what he would do with the soundtrack for a game like this. He says he wants this next game to be edgy and to push the envelope. Horror is the easiest way to do that. Imagine if he just got creative with gore, like using his creativity to find ways to show that in a game. Like, I think it would be really memorable. I think it would be a good way to put him back on the map with a statement. Like, I don't want him to make another tactical espionage game. Like, I hope to God that his next game is not like a rebranded Metal Gear game.
Step away from the rivet counting gun stuff. Because
the other thing that he said in that interview with Polygon was that, his studio has one chance. He's like, if our first game tanks, we're done. Like, I'm going to have to go work for somebody else.
That's kind of why I feel like horror would be interesting, but I don't know if a horror game from him is the fast track to success.
I think it would build the most hype, though. No, I'd agree. Look, if it's true that that studio's first game is going to determine the studio's future, he probably should just completely ape Metal Gear Solid. And he should call it like Soft Gear Solid or some crap that he won't get sued for, because
soft sprocket gas.
Right. I mean, if he if he wants to guarantee money in the bank, that's probably the way to do it. But selfishly, for myself, somebody who wants to play great new games that try things new, I feel like that would be the angle for him to take. I wish he had worked harder on Castlevania and had more involvement in Castlevania instead of just being like this director that worked on it from 6,000 miles away. It probably would have ended up being a lot better than it was, particularly the second one, which wasn't good at all.
Well, the second one had a lot of problems.
Yeah, I mean, so he's already worked on it. He's been thinking about it for a while. He's probably got some great ideas poking around in his head already. Like, just let him out, Kojima. Just let him out. Like, I just think it would build a ton of hype for his new studio. It would put the stake in the ground like right away that, we're not the old Kojima, but we're still making great games. I just think that's the right move. So, will it happen? It's possible.
I don't think he'll make another Metal Gear.
You don't?
I don't think he'll make like a Metal Gear alike, no.
You don't think he'll make like a spy game?
If he does, I don't think it will be like a weird, like, paramilitary, future-y, sci-fi thing. I think it'll be like a more straight-up James Bond.
But it'll be, like, stealthy.
Maybe. I don't know.
See, I think he needs to get away from that altogether.
I think he will get away from that. I don't think he will make something like that. I think he'll make something very different. Because I'm sure part of the reason he's been making Metal Gear as much as he had is, like, Metal Gear had to, but also Metal Gear is probably, like, the only way he could guarantee a budget to do what he wanted to do.
Right. Well, Sony's floating the bill now, so he's saying they won't meddle, but we'll see. When he gets to year 3 or year 4 of development, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Sony, I'm sure, is like, here's a blank check, make whatever the hell, you know, and as long as we put your name on it, and, like, who knows, but again, Sony also owns Team Eco, and they haven't put a game out in 11 years, so
they're pretty patient.
Maybe we'll see in 2017, Kojima.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be buttoned up
2027, rather.
He's going to be buttoned up against getting this done this generation, this game.
Probably.
Because he's still got to build a team, he's got to build facilities. Like, instead of doing his tour around the world, he probably should have got going on his studio.
Yeah, he'd worked a long time.
Yeah.
I would have probably toured the world, too, after all that.
Yeah, so and maybe it ends up being a launch game for PlayStation 5. Like, who knows?
Yeah, maybe he's the one who figures out. Maybe he's the one who makes the PlayStation 5's VR killer app.
Well, he already said the game's not going to be a VR game. No. So that was one thing that he said.
Well, he says a lot.
He also said that he doesn't understand why he got a reputation for coming in late and not on budget. So maybe he's a little... Well, we know Kojima's
There's one thing we know is he sometimes sees things. He's like, oh, wait, that's great. Let's use that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he made them rebuild Metal Gear Solid 4 from the ground up after he saw Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. Yeah. I mean, again, we are talking about a guy who made a game about children raised in VR simulators as, like, to be the ultimate soldier, and that's where Raiden comes from and stuff.
All right.
And so it's like, you think he's going to be able to resist that if he comes up with the right idea?
VR is too risky for any studio.
But maybe, what if it's just pieces? What if it does like a cyberpunky thing, and in order when you hack the Gibson or whatever the hell, you put the goggles on, and that's the hacking minigame thing.
I would love for Kojima to work in VR. Because it's like he does find unique ways to use hardware. Just like the whole unplugging the controller and plugging it back in. Like, developers don't think like that. He does. And so he could certainly find unique angles and twists on, I think, any platform that he works on. Like, I would have liked to have seen him make a Wii U game. Or a Wii game with motion control. Like, anything. Like, he's really smart and really creative. Unfortunately, he seems to not recognize where his skills lie. Like, he thinks he's a great director and writer, when in reality, he's really good at coming up with new ways to play games. And I guess above anything, above theme, tone, or whatever, I hope that that's what he does. He finds unique ways to play video games. Period. If it's in horror, all the better. But no matter what, I just hope that he focuses on his strengths and allows somebody else to come in and supplement his deficiencies, I guess, is the best way to put it.
So in summary, we would like Kojima to make a good game.
Yeah. Well, that's it. All right, so let's move on to the last topic of the Big Six, and this is going to be a pretty big one. We're going to talk Far Cry Primal. Matt, we came in today. I thought you had not been playing the game at all. I thought I was going to have to sit here and like carry the whole conversation. It turns out that you have played just about as much time as I have. Mm-hmm. I'm a little farther than you in the game, but not by much. Both of us are well over 15 hours played in the game. I am right at the end of the game. You seem to have done a little more dawdling around the open world.
That's what I do.
I'm reviewing it for doing a game eval for it. That kind of necessitates that you move forward a little more. You still sample the side content to make sure you have a good understanding of it.
I'm much more in the space of like, oh, what's that? Let's eat it.
Right.
So.
And I've been plowing kind of through the campaign a little more. So, first of all, before we start talking about this, Matt, reviews have come out this week. They have not been great.
No.
And I think that might even be, I may be being nice by saying that. They've not been good even, really. Some reviews have really taken the game to task, but still given it a decent score. But I saw one score, and scores have been all over the place. I saw one that was like a 6.5. I saw a 9.5 from one publication. Pretty rare to have that wide of a spread for review scores. Matt, what's your take on that?
I don't know, because like a lot of the scores seem kind of accurate if the scores we got in this industry used the whole scale.
If
like
5 were really average?
Yeah, if everyone was on the sifted scale, like a lot of those scores would be reasonable. But I think this game's better than 4. I think the Far Cry concept finally found its setting with this game. And while I wouldn't give it a 9.5, I really like it. And I think it works better than 4 did in a lot of ways. So I don't know why. I mean, I don't know if it's like reviewers who've had to play like 3 of these things in the space of like 2 years, or like.
But we've played those games.
Yeah, I played them all, but like I don't know. I don't know why the vitriol comes out for this one all of a sudden, because I think it's a very interesting take on the material. I think it's an interesting setting that isn't used very often.
Ever.
It's it's kind of Far Cry 4's Blood Dragon, and they're sort of like, here's a little spin-off game between years that goes crazy.
But it's not a little game.
No, it's not at all. Like, people were kind of saying, like, oh, it should be an expansion pack, or it's like, oh, they made this in a year. So they did not make this game in a year. They didn't make this game in 3 years.
The game is huge. The map is huge, and it is littered with stuff to do, man. This is not like...
And it's beautiful.
It's not like a side... I mean, I don't know why they didn't number this one. Like, it's worthy of being a numbered sequel to this series. I mean, maybe because of the time period they decided that they...
I don't. Apparently, to be a numbered Far Cry sequel, you have to be like a random bro thrown into an exotic location and forced to kill people. I don't know. I mean, I guess this is not quite we've stripped the veneer of civilization away thing that like Far Cry usually has. Maybe Far Cry numbered sequels have to have like some really like weird villain that all the PR material contains, but then only appears for like 10 minutes in total game time. Because that's happened with Voss and with, what's his name?
Oh, I can't remember his name. But
Troy Baker in a suit. That's what it was. It was.
Here's what
Pagan Min. That was his name. Pagan Min.
That's it. Here's what I would say is that all of my fears about this game that I had from watching trailers and reading about it were wrong. My fear was that the lack of guns was going to make the game repetitive and boring to play. And that is not the case at all.
No.
And it's not because it's so much fun to use spears and a bow. It's because basically what you have with the beasts in this game and the predators is a rocket launcher, a heat-sinking rocket launcher that shoots animals. That's really what it is. Like, the animals are the guns in this game. It's like a saber-toothed tiger. Like, whatever you have, a bear. Like, you basically aim the reticle on an enemy and tap the shoulder button, and your animal just goes off and tracks them down and tears them a new one. And so, to me, it's like, I don't really miss the guns if the gun is a saber-toothed tiger. Like... I've had a blast with this. In fact, like, I have allowed my sidekick, Beast, to kill far more enemies than I've killed. And I honestly don't know how you could get through this game without using your Beast extensively. Like, it would be really hard. Like, the game does a great job of ramping the difficulty. But where I'm at now, like, I'm in the end stages of the game, it's hard. Like, the first 10 hours of the game was really easy. Like, now I'm at the point where the rank and file enemies you fight can kill, like, your Sabretooth with, like, 3 club hits or whatever. So it's ramped up nicely. Like, I don't miss the guns at all. Like, it's perfectly balanced with using the bow and all these primitive weapons that you have in conjunction with the animals that you can use. I love that part of it. Here's the part I don't like, though, Matt. Nothing ever happens in this game. Nothing. Like, as far as the story is concerned, nothing ever happens.
You're just trying to rebuild a village.
That's
kind of
it.
Take over the area.
Like, yeah, there's this tribe that has invaded your area, and you're trying to push them out. That's it. Like, the bad guy, like, here's one thing I would say. Like, you're talking about, like, Voss and all the other bad guys from the Far Cry series. One thing I would say is that they did a great job developing those bad guys. Like, I really hated Voss, and Voss was unique, and he wasn't like any other enemy I had ever kind of had to focus my ire on in video games before. I remember him. I still remember him, his whole, what's the definition of insanity? Like, I remember, like, all that stuff. I don't remember squat about the bad guys in this game, Matt.
There's a really big Neanderthal guy. His name is, like,
Oh.
And that's all I got.
You see him once, like, you don't see him for forever when the game starts.
That's how Voss was too. It's just like villains in this series for some reason do not have constant presences in the game. I don't know why.
Well, no, I mean Voss did. I mean he had extensive cutscenes where you meet him and he lays out his plan. He establishes that he's insane. Like, you don't even meet the bad guy in this game until like 5 or 6 hours into it, and it's this brief little like scene on the battlefield. And I'm like, wait a minute, is that the antagonist? Like,
well, for
or
that
is he
group.
just a field general? Like, I didn't even know that he was supposed to be the bad guy. He doesn't say anything. He says like one line, and then he goes away, and you don't see him again for another like 6 hours. Like,
more than that for
more.
You have to go to the fort and. Do kind of there's kind of that final reckoning with because there's the two main tribes. There's the Neanderthals, which are described as cannibals, which is weird because I think to be a cannibal you'd have to be a human.
Right. Well,
I know they're humans, but they're not Homo sapiens.
Right.
But we could interbreed with them, so I guess maybe this is the same thing. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, they're played off as being a little more monstrous than maybe they really were.
Yeah.
And then there's the other tribe that is like looks like standard Homo sapiens, but they're really big on fire.
Yeah.
They like to set people on fire. They like to burn like prisoners or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know who they represent, but they have much nicer clothes.
Yeah. Well, they don't wear much clothes, but they paint their face.
They paint their face, but they've got like blue outfits, and it's like, oh, that's very nice. I wonder where you got that, you know? Because we're all just wearing skins, you know.
Right.
We're very, you know, your tribe, you know, the Wenja are very standard.
Which is your tribe?
Yeah, our tribe is the Wenja. They're very standard issue cavemen.
Yeah.
Like they're you know, if you're gonna draw a caveman, that's what we look like.
Well, they have moved ahead of like grunts. Like they have their own language.
Yeah.
Which oddly enough, the subtitles in this game are spelled out as if they speak in caveman language.
Yeah, because the language is based. I don't remember what it's based on. It's based on some kind of
they created their
Aboriginal
own kind of,
but it's like kind of pieces. You know, sort of like Ewoks. It's like
and it works.
And
like,
it works.
It sounds
does work.
Convincing.
But it's funny that the subtitles are like you know.
Me need meat.
You know, it's not quite that bad, but it's like Takar help hunters. Hunters ask help kind of thing.
Yeah, when they translate what they're saying, they type it out like that.
But it's like. But then because Shane mentioned that before the show, I'm like, yeah, but wouldn't it be also kind of weird if it's like Takar, I'm glad you have arrived. The hunters requested help out in the it's sort of like in our heads.
I don't think that would be weird at all.
In our heads, I think like I'm kind of expecting them to be
broken English
a little,
or whatever.
Well, not Flintstones because the Flintstones don't talk like that. But like, I don't know. It was a creative choice. I don't know if it quite works.
It's probably not worth discussing. I just thought it was funny. But
it is funny though.
But that's the thing. Nothing happens in this game. It's basically just you roaming out.
You, my friend, who clearly never tried to set a woolly rhino on fire. things happen after you do that.
Moment to moment, crazy stuff happens, and we'll get to that in a second. But I'm just saying, story-wise, there's nothing like...
No, the story is very light. The story is...
lighter than light.
Yeah, the story is like, you need to build this village, and if you build the village, you'll get cooler weapons to hit things with, and go gather every rock and tree you can find, because we're going to build some huts. Like, that's...
Yeah.
That's
so...
it.
There's like 7 or 8 specific people that you need to go out into the world and basically rescue and bring back to your village. And then you collect stuff, craft stuff, and then once you get to certain levels and you've accumulated enough stuff, you can then build huts for these 7 people or 8 people who then will buff your ability to build more stuff. So basically you're just building a homestead is what it comes down to. And while you're out in the fields, you'll randomly come across missions where your tribesmen are being held hostage and you need to rescue them. Pretty much any mission will add citizens back to your village. And we'll build the village, and then at certain thresholds of population...
Even if you save someone, untie them, and then they run off and get killed by an eagle...
You still get the plus.
You still get the population. It is a good thing that your population does not go down when your tribespeople do stupid shit.
Because they're idiots.
Yeah, because...
And they're terrible at
visiting
fighting.
the mammoth herds up in the north, it's just your people and Neanderthals getting killed in hilarious ways as you stand there and watch. It's amazing.
Well, the other thing, too, is that your people are terrible fighters.
Oh, yeah.
Against the Neanderthals, just wipe them out every time they're in a fight. You have to, run in and, try to save them before they start fighting.
Yeah, you better get good at the headshots from a distance, because they'll all be dead by the time you get there.
But it doesn't matter. You don't lose population when the guys, die out in the field, which is the good news.
It's just disheartening.
It is. Well, it is. You fight through this mission, and then you untie him, and then a tiger leaps in and just eats his head, and you're just like, what? Dude?
Or you just see guys running past you, be chased by a badger, and you're just like,
dude,
bro.
That's what I love about this game, though, the random stuff that happens. It's like, so other Far Cry games had a taste of this, where, a mountain lion comes running, and maybe you're trying to shoot a deer, and the mountain lion comes in and kills the deer before you can kill it or whatever. This ecosystem is insane. There are herds of deer running around, and you get warning signs. You see this herd of
passive wolves chasing them and stuff.
Yeah, you see a herd of animals coming at you, and that's not they're not just running for exercise. Something's chasing them. So you learn oh crap, if 20 deer come running at me, there's something really big and bad running after that herd of deer that you should probably prepare for. The ecosystem part of this game is absolutely incredible. I've never seen another game do it this well, this compelling. It's just, you never know what's going to happen. I've seen bears fight bears. I've seen saber-tooths fight bears. I've seen woolly mammoths stomp the living crap out of a saber. It is truly this living, breathing ecosystem where everything is relying on everything else to survive, and it's awesome. It is fully realized. That's why I say, this is totally a Far Cry game. More than, it's the next evolution of Far Cry. And, the lack of guns hasn't changed that at all for me, because they've integrated the animals so well. And it's something that I really enjoyed in the other Far Cry games that I never felt went far enough. And now it has. But the caveat is, look, it does get repetitive, because nothing happens. There's never any major plot points where everything shifts or gets turned on its head. You don't even get to fight the bad guy, forever. It takes forever before you really square off with the guy. You don't build up any anger towards really anyone in this game, I guess is the best way to put it. So
I'm angry at everyone. Are you kidding? If you basically, if you come at me, I'm going to find you and kill you.
Yeah.
I have tracked animals much further than I probably should have, just because they came at me. So I'm oh, well, I'm going to shoot you an arrow, and then they run off, and I'm I'm going to track your blood all the way until you fall over, and I'm going to take your teeth.
Yeah.
So but it's I don't really miss the story. I don't miss.
Really?
No, I don't care. I mean, what am I going to do? Miss some rudimentary bad guy, good guy? So I don't care. I'm just okay. Take the valley back. We're supposed to live here. These guys are awful. They eat people. The other people set people on fire and then send them back to their village to die of burn.
Charred. Yeah.
It's like okay. I get it. These guys are jerks. We want to live here. Presumably, the tribe you're playing is the tribe that humanity descended from to some degree or whatever. So like we're rooting for us, and that's all I really need.
See, that was enough for me for a long time. But now I'm getting to the point where I haven't seen like a new mission type in like forever.
There are a lot of like cluster that every time you see one of those stupid orange like mission things, you're like, oh, this thing again, huh? But like
because it's always like
the same
rescue thing. The tribes member.
And I wish at some point my tribesmen were a little more competent,
self-proficient. Yeah.
Frankly, I'm like, how did you manage to get captured? Because every single one of you fuckers gets killed like if a fucking rock drops on your foot so far. But like, your own stories happen well enough. Just like you said, like crazy shit. There's my brilliant idea was like, okay, well, I'm having trouble killing the woolly rhinos. So what if I set one on fire with a fire arrow so it'll like lose some health before like it has a chance to come at me and I can kill it first? And instead of coming at me, it ran off into the brush and set the entire forest on fire, flushing out a saber-toothed tiger that then tried to kill me. So I'm running from the saber-toothed tiger. Everything's on fire. A bunch of Neanderthals show up to try to kill the woolly rhino, and then they're getting set on fire because it's trailing fire everywhere.
Yeah.
So they're on fire running around, and it's also shooting at me. And then the saber-toothed tiger sometimes breaks off to kill one of them. And then, like, this was about the time my girlfriend walked into the room, and she's like, what? And, like, then, like, a herd of goats runs by, and they're being chased by a badger who is also on fire.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man is in the forest.
That is, that is when this game is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And it's unlike any other game out there. Like, I've just never experienced the stuff that I've experienced in this.
And that's always the strength of Far Cry.
Where you're seeing
like
the food chain at work, like...
Far Cry's always had a really cool element of like, the nature stuff is weird and anything can happen, but it's never ever been on this level.
Not even close. Yeah, like I would mess around like they would set you up in the other Far Cry games. Like they'd put the tiger in the cage at the outpost.
Right.
Shoot the cage. Tiger comes out, kills.
Yeah.
Like.
It's totally different.
Yeah,
it's much more organic.
They put the tiger in the cage as a nod to the old games in this game.
Right.
Like, it's like a nod saying, remember,
here you go, your owl can open the cage,
right,
whatever.
Remember when you used to have to do this to use the lion, and now you're riding on one? Like...
It's like an evolution. My favorite Far Cry moment of all time was in Far Cry 3, where I was sneaking up I was hunting a leopard. I needed a leopard skin for whatever, because you need a whole skin from an animal to make a fucking bullet bag or whatever. So I'm like, I'm looking for the leopard. I've gone to where the leopard icon is on the map. There's like a herd of like cows or whatever down on the ground. So I'm like, I'll go up and look, and maybe like he'll be stalking the leopard. Maybe the leopard's stalking the herbivores. So I'll come up and like sit up here. So I'm in like this tall grass up at the top of this ridge. And I'm like, okay, I'll just look around, and all of a sudden I hear growling. And I'm like, what?
Oh.
And I slowly turn to the right, and there's a leopard like a foot to my right, looking at the same cows I'm looking at, and I just slowly pull the bow back to hit him in the eye, like before he sees me. And right as I'm letting it go, he turns and looks. The arrow goes over his head, and I'm just like, run! And like just and then you say, wow, thing, and I'm like, that's my favorite Far Cry moment of all time.
Stuff like that happens all the time in this game.
And this game is basically, they took that moment and made a game out of it.
Oh, yeah. Like a whole game. That stuff just happens all the time. It's uncanny. The sound in this game is incredible.
Oh, and it's like just like seeing things out and happen in front of you from the... Like when I first walked out into the world, and like there's like this like little herd of like boars, and all of a sudden this eagle swoops down and picks one of the boars. And like,
it tries to fly away with it and drops it. Like.
Yeah. And I'm like, did that eagle just take a pig?
Yeah.
Like, what the world is terrifying.
It really is. Like, and the sound in this game is incredible, man. Like, I don't know if I've ever heard sound design this good. I don't know where they got the sounds.
You really don't even need the HUD.
No.
If you turn everything off, I bet you could play the game just fine.
It is, the sound. It puts your butt right at 10,000 BC, man. I don't know how they came up with the sounds for a lot of these creatures. Like, it is... the sound itself scares the crap out of you sometimes. Like, you know what a saber-tooth sounds like. And if you don't have, like, a sidekick, like, with you at that moment, like, you're going to die. Like, that saber-tooth is going to kill you unless you have a sidekick with you.
Or a river.
Yeah, and
they can't swim.
Yeah. And you hear that growl, and you just get this tingle up your spine. You're like, oh crap, man! Like, and you learn like over time, like what all the animals sound like, and like, or if you just hear like a mammoth charging, and you hear those feet, ba-doom, 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 and his subwoofers kicking.
Or even you hear like voices.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
after a while, you can tell who
The
they
languages,
are.
yeah.
Like, is it our people? Is it the Neanderthals? Is it the fire
other
guys?
tribe,
like,
yeah.
Like, you can tell, like, from the different language, from the different dialect, and from, like, how the voices are intoned. It's very impressive.
And look, Matt, I'm the last person who ever extols the virtues of stories in games. I've long been on the record as saying almost all of them suck and, like, you know, they pale in comparison to films and stuff like that. And I'm a gameplay first guy typically, but there has to be something, man. I mean, there is just nothing in this game to motivate you to go forward. And look, I get it. Us against them, save the village. That carried me for 15 hours. But right around that point, I was like, come on, man. I have done the same missions over and over. I haven't seen a new creature in 5 hours. Maybe look, if I dive to the depths somewhere, there's probably some crazy shark or something at the bottom of the, like, whatever.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Like, as far as just coming across new creatures, like, that has come to an end. Now it's about finding the rare hides of creatures. Like, I'm not done with the game. I feel like the game should be done based upon what I've experienced and what little story there is. And so I still have a ways to go. That's why I haven't seen our game eval yet. I haven't quite finished the game.
Well, it's still definitely a Ubisoft to-do list.
Oh,
like so many of those.
We should talk about the crafting. Yeah. I mean, the crafting and the gathering in this game is insane.
Yeah, if you don't like picking up stuff to make another thing out of that stuff, and not the game for you, because you are picking up stuff. I mean, the crafting has been in the other Far Cries, but it is taken to, like, the nth degree in this one.
It's too much, in my opinion. It's way too much. Like, and the other thing, too, is, like, some of the requirements to craft some stuff, like some of those huts, it's like, oh, I need 50 hardwood. It's like, well, 50 hardwood took me about 2 hours to collect, lady. Like, and then
You're going to give me more than a bomb bag.
Right, right. You use it all in that hut, and then you have 7 or 8 other huts that you have to build, and it's like, ugh, do I have to really go collect all this stuff again? Like, I feel like that was too much.
I haven't run into that because after I started building the huts, I was like, oh, that's a lot. So, like, I got the skills that
help you get more
from
yeah.
it. And so, like, I mean,
I got those.
So I used up all my alder wood on, like, the gathering woman's second hut upgrade.
Yeah.
And I went out, and, like, 5 minutes later, I had a full alder wood again. I mean, it's just like you get a lot, and, like, the problem becomes finding the rare stuff.
The game is flexible. Like, it does let you, like, I mean, the crafting options are insane. Like, you get like a separate menu for each of those characters that you bring back to the village. And some are bigger than others. Like, the first couple you get are huge, and then they kind of get smaller as you start bringing new people back. But I mean,
you can see it all ahead of time, so you can decide what to do in what order. So it's
yeah,
not like...
it doesn't like uncover the next one as you craft one. It's like you can see what the end result is going to be, so you can kind of plot how you want to craft your stuff to open up the full tree, so to speak. But to me, it's still way too much. And then the other part too is like to build some of the huts, like they require a very specific skin. So it's like the striped wolf skin. Well, finding a striped wolf could be like, there could be like 5 on this whole huge map. And like, I actually found one by luck. Like, so, yeah, you're right. Like some of the specific like skins that you have to get, they start to get annoying after a while because you need them to like finish your village, so to speak. So, but man, I am really loving this game, Matt.
Yeah.
Like, again, I feel like I'm starting to wane a little bit at the 15, 16-hour mark because things are starting to get repetitive and nothing's really happening with the story. But as far as just playing this game, I'm having a blast, man. Like, I am really looking at these reviews and I'm like, what? Like, are we playing this? And I say this like, it seems like once every 3 months I say, are we playing the same game? And this is one of those cases. Like, I feel like a lot of people have seen all the reviews, and look, it's been pretty unanimous, like 7 to 8 range on the 7 to 10 scale.
Every once in a while, I feel like
I've seen a couple 6.5s.
Everybody sort of decides, like, oh, this game's going to be this, and everybody gives it that score, and that's that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I love this game. Like, I don't disagree with your criticisms of it, and I would definitely warn off anyone. I would warn off anyone who is just super dead set against the whole, like, Ubisoft, like, here's a bunch of weird things you have to do, like, in a checklist.
Here's a spreadsheet of stuff you need to check out.
The back of your character's cave is literally a checklist made of cave paintings.
It is,
I mean, it's literally what it is.
Yeah.
But, like, just getting out there and doing the moment-to-moment stuff and just crafting what you're interested in because that's how you want to play the game, as opposed to being a completist about it. Like, there's some great, great times to be had in this game.
Yeah, I mean, just the moments that I've had. I mean, there's just too. I could sit here all
it's
day.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful-looking game on PS4. On PC, I can't even. It's probably gonna be even better. I'm sure it'll be even better. But like, you know, it's
a pretty game. It does get repetitive again, the environments, but look, they're living in like a jungle environment, so what can you do with it? I mean, you only have so much.
And you do have kind of like the southern areas more water based, and it's more
the north
down there.
The
north
snow.
is snowy, and you have to craft winter clothing for yourself.
Yeah.
You have to have a certain guy in your village who teaches you how to craft winter clothing.
So there's all that.
Yeah.
It's like there's all these complicated systems. It's like, you need to go out. You need to find this guy. Once you bring in the guy, you need to build his hut. Once you build his hut, it opens up these new options so that he will teach you how to craft the winter clothes so that you can go to the north. Like, that's what we're talking about with this game, and that's just one instance of it.
Yeah, but it does. But at the same time, like, it does, make sense in what because at first point, when you don't have the final winter clothing crafted, you get this little cold meter, and it counts down. If it counts down to nothing, you freeze to death. Yeah. And at some point, I was in there, and it was flashing red, and I'm just like, oh, I'm kind of in trouble, and I guess I could fast travel out. But then I was like, what if I set a fire? What if I get a fire? And like, yeah, you set a fire. I was just going to
say, why didn't you just set a fire?
You set a fire, and while you're standing next to the fire, your cold meter replenishes. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay.
I just set a hut on fire and just stood next to it until I rebuilt
I went to a campsite, but I guess that would work too. I could just set the forest on fire, and that'll be warmer. That's
the funny part was I tried to set grass on fire first, and the heat from it wouldn't get me warm. I could run through it and burn. And be like, ah! And my cold meter was still, like, low. But then I set a hut on fire and stood next to it, and my meter actually went back up. So, I don't know, man. I can't see where a lot of people are coming from in evaluating this game. Like, look, 15 or 16 hours for $60 is still pretty freaking awesome. Like, most single players don't last that long. So
yeah, about on the old X-Play scale, I would have probably gone with a 4 out of 5 on it.
I mean, look, if I was reviewing on the old 7 to 10 scale, like we used at GT, like this game is way above an 8. Like I would definitely give it higher than an 8, but it's rarely getting scores that high. Like I said, there was one outlier that was like over a 9.
Yeah, I don't know,
but most are like 6 to like 7.5.
I don't know what the deal. Like, do people really want their guns? Do they really want no saber-tooth?
I mean, the overall criticism has been that it's too much the same as other Far Crys. That has been the criticism in every review. It's too much like the prior games.
But I feel like everything that Far Cry consistently does over and over again feels so much at home in this setting.
Well, also, wouldn't it be a new IP if it wasn't a Far Cry game?
Yes.
Like,
I mean, that's kind of, it's like complaining about Street Fighter V because you punch people too much.
Yeah, because there's a quarter circle towards move in it. Like,
but I don't, every once in a while, I think reviewers as a whole, and I include myself in that community, particularly back in the day. Sometimes we just get it in our head. It's like, oh, I'm sick of playing this game. Yeah. Like we've done this so much, and it's just sometimes it's warranted. Assassin's Creed, and sometimes Far Cry Primal, I think, is a gem. Like
I actually feel like this plays I'm gleaning different types of enjoyment out of this than I have from prior Far Cry games.
Yeah.
And look, there's still the whole go and overtake the outpost, light the bonfire,
but it's different.
Reveal the area, that area of the map. Obviously Assassin's Creed started that. Far Cry does it as well.
But there's no towers.
No.
You have to do towers.
Yeah, there's no towers in this. But I mean, that whole aesthetic of it, how you progress and make progression in the game's all kind of the same. But
and there have been a couple times when, because you get a grappling hook. A couple times, because I've been playing so much Dying Light. Yeah. There's been a couple of this is really similar to what I already play.
Yeah, the grapple hook changes this game big time.
It really does.
Try to get it as early as possible because otherwise the traversal in it can be a real pain in the ass.
And it's very well implemented. Like the swinging back and forth across things is like actually really well done. Because like a lot of times in first person that stuff can just be annoying. Yeah. But I really like it in this.
I think the gameplay in this is great. Like I really don't miss the guns one iota. I'm glad with the direction that they took. I'd much rather command a dynamic animal as a weapon instead of just using bullets or whatever. I think they made the right decision there. I don't begrudge them at all for that.
My only real big question is why is there no co-op?
Yeah. Why can't we go together and hunt mammoths?
Yeah.
That I agree. It makes no sense whatsoever.
I mean, I probably wouldn't use it because I'm generally a solo player on these games, but I don't understand why it's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seemed because it was in Far Cry 4.
Yeah.
Like, why not?
It sounds like both of us are enjoying the hell out of this game.
Yeah. Way more than I thought I would.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Far Cry, and I was ready for some more Far Cry, but I was.
And I'd have been totally cool with that.
Yeah, I was just kind of ready. I was kind of ready to be like, oh, cool, I like it. I like prehistory stuff. I like dinosaurs and prehistoric animals and stuff, and I was cool to see all that stuff. I was into that, but I really wasn't expecting to be as hooked as I was. I mean, I played that game it went live at 9 p.m. on Monday night, and I played it until about 3 in the morning.
Oh, I've been playing
straight.
it I have to. I need to get through it for the eval, but I'm addicted to the game.
I have no reason to play it other than I like it, and I put it in. Even last night, I started playing it, or yesterday I started playing it, and I had like a heating pad on my foot because I did something stupid to it, and like all of a sudden my girlfriend was like, "You should take that heating pad off. It's been hours." And I'm like, what? And it had been like 3.5 hours since I started playing the game, and I just totally didn't. I was in another world.
No, I mean, it really does take you to another world. Mm-hmm. And this world existed, which makes it even more compelling. So, yeah, I agree. The hours just while away playing this game. You never know what's going to happen from one minute to the next. You have to stay on your toes at all times because you literally, like any minute, some creature could come barreling out of the bush and just throw all your plans to the wind. Mm-hmm. And I like that. Like, sometimes it sucks and you get burned by it, but more often than not, you end up with these amazing moments. Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't know if I'll play another game this year that has such crazy moments where I share stories about where I'm like, well, I set this thing on fire and then it ran into the house and it set the house. Like, it just doesn't happen in other games. Like
I'm worried. You know what I'm worried about? I'm worried that I'm going to play No Man's Sky and I'm going to be like, man, I wish you could set stuff on fire.
Right.
Like,
yeah. So, yeah, like, don't believe what you're hearing out there. Like, wait for our game eval if you're a Sifted subscriber, because I think it's going to give you a different perspective from what you've been hearing. Like, don't just write this game off based upon the reviews that you've been seeing.
At the very least,
so far.
Pick it up cheap at the end of the year or something. Like, play it. Play it at some point.
Oh, for sure. You should definitely play it. Like, again, like, things are going to happen in this game that you've never seen happen in a video game before, and they're awesome. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just crazy watching the whole food chain at work in this game, and even more so than what you've had in the prior Far Cry games. So, I would say, wait for our eval. Don't write it off yet. It's definitely might be something that you're into. The eval, hopefully, I think I should be able to finish the game tonight. Should be up tomorrow, along with this episode. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. You'll get my opinion here and in the eval.
So tomorrow, you mean now?
Right. If you're watching this on Sifted, it should probably be up around the same time, unless the game has this hidden extra leg at the end. But
you haven't heard about the World War I section?
No, right. Like, I've got like everything unlocked, all the character, like everything. Like,
at the end of the game, you're unfrozen after ending up in an ice block, and you become a lawyer.
So yeah, don't write it off just yet. Wait for our eval. It's time to move on to our trailer of the week. Could it be...
Speaking of Ubisoft lawyers.
Yeah, speaking of Ubisoft's lawyers. So the trailer of the week is Uncharted 4's story trailer. It just came out today. It is amazing.
Yep.
Without a doubt. It's incredible. You're going to see it here in a second. But what happened today was... There's a little scene, and the weird thing is in the trailer...
It's nothing.
There's no reason for it to even be in there.
No.
There's this little shot that shows a picture hanging on the wall, and as it turns out, that picture had been ripped off from Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
Concept art. With the assassin removed from the concept art.
Exactly.
So it's like they knew. Somebody
knew.
Someone with Photoshop knew.
The artist who works on Assassin's Creed noticed it right away, went public with it. Naughty Dog, to its credit, came out and said, oh my god, what a major, major screw-up. We are so sorry. They apologized to Ubisoft, to the developers of Black Flag, to their fans, and immediately, literally updated the trailer within like an hour. And put out the new version.
I have no idea how that happened.
I don't either. I really don't know how they did it. Put out a new version of the trailer with a different painting in that shot. I don't know why they wouldn't just take the shot out, because it literally makes no sense. You'll see it when you watch the trailer.
Because I think what that shot's supposed to be is, like, because then it cuts to a location that could have been pretty similar to the original painting.
Yeah.
And I think it's supposed to be him looking at that and thinking about what he really wants to go do.
Well, he's talking about like having a typical family life.
Right.
And it shows him on the couch with his significant other, and then it just cuts to this shot of a picture on the
Well, because he kind of looks... It's supposed to be kind of like, that's where he wants to... It's, the pull's always going to be there to go to that weird, forgotten, abandoned island with the zombies on it or whatever. Because something weird always happens at the end of these games.
Yeah. I still think they could have done without a shot. But anyway, so that's the whole backstory.
Or they could have just painted their own damn painting.
Yeah. I mean, a developer as big as Naughty Dog, how do they not make everything in-house? Like, it's just insane that this made it into this trailer. Like, it's crazy, folks. But anyway, we don't want to
We'll never know.
Yeah, we probably will, actually.
Oh, yeah.
But we don't want to overshadow how awesome the trailer is. So, as usual, before we send you off to watch it, if you have any questions for Matt and I, put them into the chat now. That way we can kind of sort through them while the trailer's playing, and we can come back and get right to them. So, get your questions into the chat right now. Here is the story trailer for Uncharted 4.
We were meant for this, Nathan. You, me, together. We were destined for something great.
For those who prove worthy, paradise awaits.
Took a long time for him to get out of this game.
He's meant for this life.
Oh, crap!
Last I checked, we're all a bunch of thieves, digging around where we shouldn't.
Shame we're not on the same side.
I am a man of fortune, and I must seek my fortune. So, are you ready to seek your fortune?
Hang on, Nathan!
Where is the artifact?
Heads up!
I made a promise that I was done with this life.
How long have we been chasing this thing?
Long time.
Real long time. Just you and me. No offense to these guys, but they don't get it.
If you're done lying to me, then you should stop lying to yourself.
The biggest pirate treasure of all time is within our grasp.
Look, Nate, I'm gonna make you a one-time offer. Drop everything. Go home. Live your life. Or we can just end it right here.
There's gotta be another way. I need you on this one.
You ever wonder, like, different choices, how we might have ended up?
No. I like the hand we've been dealt.
All right, there it is. An awesome trailer, probably the best trailer of 2016 so far, I would say. I think it's the first time we've ever used Uncharted as our trailer of the week on the show, too.
I think so.
Yeah. It's not like they put out media every day.
No, it's not very common.
Like, they have not hoarded this game
saturate.
out at all, like a lot of other games. Like, some of the Japanese games anymore, man, holy cow. Like,
man, how does that game look like that, and Street Fighter V on the PS4 has dithered self-shadowing? It's unbelievable.
It really is unbelievable. That's why they call them the Naughty Gods.
The Naughty Gods.
But yeah, they're definitely living up to their pedigree with that game, at least so far. Let's see, we got a ton of questions here. Here's one from Sega. What are your thoughts, predictions for Sony's PlayStation VR conference in 3 weeks? So yeah, GDC, they're having a PlayStation VR conference.
Fitting, because that's where they first showed it.
Right. And they always talk VR big at GDC. Right. Any prediction?
Price?
Yeah. I think price and release date.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the other two guys have their cards on the table at this point.
There's no reason not to.
Sony has nothing to gain by holding the price back, unless it hasn't figured it out, which if it hasn't figured it out at this point, there's something really wrong there.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing I would say. The rumors were swirling that PlayStation VR was not coming out until the end of the year. If they do not announce a price and a release date at GDC, that rumor is 100% true. Mm-hmm. They should and hopefully will announce price and
even if it is
date.
coming out at the end of the year, they still should announce the release date and the price.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise they're going to wait till E3, which surprisingly isn't all that far away right now, which is kind of scary to think about. Otherwise, they wouldn't have another chance to do it. So I would say this is probably where they'll do it.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, GDC makes sense to really push it as much as you can because that's where you're going to have the direct contact with developers.
Yep.
That could make you some really good content, especially if you're pushing to the end of the year. That's enough time to get some stuff in the pipeline.
For sure.
Maybe they should talk to the Ori and the Blind Forest guys. Apparently they have nothing to do.
Just to bring it full circle. From that Japanese dude, your thoughts on Warren Spector joining System Shock 3 team?
Cool,
I guess.
I mean,
cool, I guess. I mean,
he's cool. I mean, I just,
he's a great guy.
It's been a long, long time since System Shock 2, and
it's been a long time since he's made a game like System Shock.
Yeah.
I mean, his last 2 games were Mickey Mouse platformers.
Which usually would be an insult, but they were literally Mickey Mouse platformers.
Yeah, they were.
Starring Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, exactly. Kids game.
I liked them.
I liked them. They're moderately good,
Yeah.
I guess is the best way to put it. And he's been away now for what, 4 years has it been since he finished the last Mickey game?
4 years, yeah.
So I'm a little nervous. I almost feel like he's maybe been signed on a little bit as like a consultant, like figurehead.
I would think so. I mean,
because he's not moving to work with the team on the game. He's like doing it satellite. He'll fly in like once a month. And
I don't think anything negative can come of him as an advisor on that game. I think he's, whatever you think about the epic Mickey games, he has a lot of cool ideas, and he knows what a System Shock game should be.
Yeah, for sure.
So
more than anybody, you would assume.
More than anyone, yeah. I mean, him and Levine.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm glad they've got some eyes from the old days on it. I mean, because you can get sort of fixated on how things have to work, or how things you want them to work, or an easy way around something. And someone who's been there since the beginning, someone who was there in the old days when it was a lot harder to get that stuff off the ground, might be willing to say like, hey, you should maybe more do it like this, or you're if you want to be true to the original material, it's more like this.
Yeah.
So I got no problem with it.
Yeah, I think we're both cool with it.
Spectre's a positive.
Although I think it might be a little overrated, his involvement with the game.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a headline it is really, but it's a positive thing for the game.
Okay. Let's see. Any opinions? This is from Darnest57, I believe. Do you have any opinions about Black Desert Online? Launches early access on Saturday at midnight. I hope it changes MMORPG combat forever. It has a much more action-oriented approach to its combat. It's much more immediate, visceral. You get a lot more feedback from the combat. I hope that its success, and it has been a success already. It's had like a huge beta. I hope that motivates future developers of MMORPGs to have that sort of combat in their games. There's no reason MMO combat is the way it is, that it feels like you're completely detached from what's happening. Like, there's no reason for that. So
it's an artifact of the old 28K days, basically.
Right. Now there's no reason for it with the internet connections the way they are.
If I can play Street Fighter on the internet, I should be able to play some action-based combat.
Yeah. So hopefully it's a success, and the people who build these games will say, why did that happen? And then they'll look at what's most different about that game, which is the combat, and they'll start evolving their gameplay as well for future MMORPGs. So that's what I would say.
Perhaps it could prod World of Warcraft 2 at long last.
Yeah, and if you're watching this, by the way, we did curate a story to get on the Black Desert Online beta. Just go to Black Desert Online's game page, and then on the channel nav, just click Early Access, and it'll sift the story right there for you. So if you want to get in on it, you can. I think the one publication had like 10,000 invites or something ridiculous. So let's see. Someone's giving you props for talking of Dying Light. Yeah, from Odin5. Said props for talking of Dying Light. Boulevard33, thoughts on the Division beta getting 6.4 million for biggest new IP beta. Will it blow up now that Destiny is waning? Yep.
Probably. I mean, I hadn't played it before, and I just loaded it up. And
you're a big Destiny fan, and you like it a lot, right?
I do. Yeah. And the bullet spongy thing is annoying, but it's not a game killer. And like, because I didn't play the first one. I played, this one. There's a lot more to do in this one.
Yeah, there's a lot more.
And, like, running around and exploring this and finding this and going in the sewers and I dug it. I dug it a lot.
Yeah,
so
I think Division's going to be a
I think it's going to be, and this is for me, I think I've mentioned before, I was like, don't care. Like, I was just like, but as long as, like, the beta was up and there's nothing else to play, I'm like, I give it a shot. I'm like, all right, I'm in. All right, cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
I think the Division's going to do really well. I think another part of it, too, is that there's not, other than its other game, Ubisoft, which put out Far Cry to compete with the Division, which is really weird.
I don't know what that is about.
Makes no sense, but
I'm a sucker for base building, so...
But Bolivar hit it on the head in that a lot of people are moving on from Destiny because they're talking about Destiny 2 now, and that's always like they're raising the flag.
And that's a mistake. I thought when you launched Destiny, I thought it was like 10-year plan, like that. Yeah. So that's going to be your platform for 10 years, like just keep updating it World of Warcraft style.
Nope.
But now apparently you want me to buy another game. Out.
They'll make Division 2 as well.
Yeah, but I mean they didn't make that promise. They didn't make that statement.
Yep. This is for Vidya Games. Have you guys played any Garden Warfare 2? Feel like it might be overshadowed now. I have not played any of it.
I have not played any of it and do not plan to play any of it.
So I think you just proved your own point.
Yep.
We're both playing Far Cry Primal instead of playing Garden Warfare 2. So, yeah, I think that kind of makes your point for you. It was overshadowed by other games, and now here comes The Division.
Here comes The Division, then here comes Uncharted.
Yeah. I mean, that was really poor timing for
yeah.
Garden Warfare 2 because by all accounts, it's a great game, just like the first one was great. I really liked the first one. And this is kind of more, bigger, badder, to quote Cliff Blazinski.
But it's like something's got to fall by the wayside, and it's going to be that.
Yeah, at least for me, my personal playtime, I just don't have time for it. So, yeah, I think you're right. It is getting overshadowed by other games.
But I don't know when else they could have put it out, really. Maybe earlier, but that's not always an option.
Here's a good one. Enter Blade. With all the ribbing Far Cry Primal is getting for being too much of a checklist, how sad will we be when Zelda use open world as a lot of Skyward Sword-esque tedious side stuff?
It will be completely looked over and given a pass because it's Nintendo.
No, I don't believe that. Skyward Sword got taken to task. I took it to task a good bit in my review on GT.
But you're not reviewing shit for GT anymore, are you?
Yeah. Well, GT's not reviewing anything anymore, so...
I think there's a lot of stuff Nintendo gets away with.
No, I would agree with you 100%. And Zelda in particular gets a pass. Like Skyward Sword, like a lot of people, agree with Nintendo. No voice acting. Why? Mm-hmm. Because Nintendo says it doesn't want voice acting. Not because if you really think about it, how much better a Zelda game could be if it had voice acting. So, I agree with you. It does get a pass, but I also feel like Nintendo's kind of worn out its goodwill over the last few years.
You would think, but for all the times people spend railing about like piecemeal, overpriced DLC, everybody goes out and buys those amiibos, don't they?
Yeah. Look, I am scared a little bit for Zelda U as an open world game because...
Well, I keep getting worried because they keep doing the thing where it's like, oh, everybody wants an open world game, but we thought, what if we can give it to them in a way that'll surprise them? I'm like, don't try to surprise me, just make the fucking open world Zelda game. Like, just give me Skyrim with Link. I don't care about what weird twist you want to put on it.
Here's what I wonder is, like, after playing a game like Far Cry Primal, is Zelda going to be able to measure up to even, like, Far Cry Primal as far as an open world is concerned? Like, your first ever open world game?
You gotta
wonder.
Are
they going to be able to compete with a team who's now built 3 of them? Like,
is there going to be, like, moblins, like, hunting, like, little creatures and stuff? I don't know.
I mean, look... Nintendo had to start somewhere, so I'm not begrudging it for making the switch over to this, but they've got a tough road to toe, man. Like, to compete with all these open world games from developers who have been doing it. I mean, look at the Rockstar guys. They've been doing it for decades now.
But will it matter? Because, I mean, it's Zelda, and, like, people, like, that always happens.
It'll matter.
But it might matter to you, but it always happens where, like, like Zelda or Nintendo does a thing, it's like, this is, like, behind the times in terms of what it should be, and it's like, well, I don't care because it's Mario or because it's Zelda. Like, that happens a lot with the user base.
I think the fans will forgive it. What I'm saying is, I think critics aren't going to be as forgiving on Zelda if it's a crappy open world game. Fans are just going to be like, open world Zelda, blah.
Maybe not. I think even in the review world, I think there's a lot of love to Nintendo, and I feel like it's like there will be a lot of like, well, it's like this, this game did this better and that better, but it's a first try for Nintendo and it's pretty good. It's certainly the best we've ever seen from Nintendo.
Yeah.
Like that's
They'll find some way to couch it to
Yeah.
soften the blow a little bit.
So I mean, I'm on one hand, like Zelda U is like one of my most wanted. I'd say that's top 5 most wanted game
for sure.
But it's also top 5 most scary.
Oh
game.
crap! Yeah, it could be bad.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. We'll take a couple more. Is there any period of time you'd like to see explored? This is from Vox91. Explored in modern AAA games that hasn't been explored or not explored enough. I think this kind of goes back to our discussion from last episode about Assassin's Creed and how they're kind of running out of time periods that are really compelling and interesting.
Yeah, although I think that probably stems more from the whole like Far Cry Primal.
Oh,
like,
I'm sure, but I mean, look, the Assassin's Creed could go back to the Stone Age.
Yeah.
I honestly wish that this game just had dinosaurs. I think that would make the game infinitely more interesting. I get that, like
on one hand, I want that, but on the other hand, like there's like a whole subgenre of PC games that do that, like Ark and all those things.
Have you played Ark though?
No.
I mean, it's not really like that. It's more about like, it's even more about crafting and survival. And
it's like the DayZ thing.
Yeah.
But like, there's got to be, it's Far Cry. Fuck it. Like, time traveler gets zapped in the dinosaur period, and now you have to do that. Like, it'd be great. I'd be into that, but like, dinosaurs aren't a totally, super left field thing for games. I mean, we've dealt with dinosaurs. I don't know what I would. I always feel like kind of the late 1800s is sort of overlooked. Early 1900s, Mafia 1's one of the few early pre-Depression era games I can think of. I wouldn't mind seeing something
L.A.
set
Noire was that the 50s.
L.A. Noire was post-war, so that was the 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, because then
everything's been explored at this point. There's really not much left. I mean,
because then you like butt up against the whole like everybody's got to like tamp the powder down on the musket, and that just takes forever. Nobody wants to play that. But yeah. I kind of always hoped that Assassin's Creed would catch up to today, and like you'd get like a one like set in like the Flower Power 60s or something.
Yeah. Oh, that might not be bad.
Yeah.
Otherwise, pretty much everything's been done at this point. Like,
pretty much.
I wouldn't mind like a horror game set around like the Salem witch trials or something.
I mean,
like
I'm interested in stuff like For Honor, which sort of tackles the same time period a lot of fantasy games take place in, but without the fantasy
them all
stuff.
Together, yeah.
Or the what was the like that? There's that game coming out that's like based like around medieval like warfare stuff. I can't remember the name now, but it's like supposed to like there's no magic, there's no wizards, there's no dragons. It's just legit medieval stuff. That kind of thing. I'm surprised they haven't done a Far Cry where now that Primal has set the tone, I think the next like kind of logical place to go with in terms of that is like now you're a peasant in the Dark Ages and you have to run around and gather hay and stuff and avoid the plague. I think that's your next move.
I think there is a game about the plague. That's The Division.
Yeah, but everybody's got AKs in that. I'm saying like Far Cry Bubonic is what I'm after.
Got ya. All right, let's see. From Ahab GT question, will you guys be doing E3 coverage? If so, what would that entail? Really enjoying GameFace, blah, blah, blah. Yes, we definitely do E3 coverage. What we did last year, and we'll probably do at least some form of that this year, is a Sifted Hangout. So what we did is we watched the press conferences basically with you guys, with live commentary kind of over the top. People seemed to really like it. It was a lot of fun hanging out with all the users and just kind of vibing off of each other during the biggest day in games of the year. So we'll probably do that on the press conference days, the first couple of days. The next couple of days, no plan yet. Don't want to kind of tip our hand yet and let you know what we're doing. But we'll definitely probably do a hangout for like the big 3 press conferences, which I had a really good time doing, and I think you did too. So,
and this time I won't have to press all the buttons.
Yeah, exactly. You'll be able to sit here and talk instead of running the TriCaster and running like DK and through via satellite.
Yeah.
That was insane. Let's see. Will E3, this is from Sublevel 28, will E3 be done like you did last year? Yep. So there you go. Dragon Slayer 91, why is Sony waiting for such a long time to talk about price release for PlayStation VR? Because it just won.
Yeah.
It just outweighted everybody else, and now it's holding all the cards. Like, as long as it announces a price lower than those other two, it's going to look good. So it just totally worked the whole situation.
And
basically.
I can't imagine Sony was going to go 600. So.
Yeah.
They learned their lesson not to go $599 already.
Oh, wow, there's a ton of questions.
Kingdom Come Deliverance. Thank you, Ahab GT. That's the...
Oh, that is it, yeah.
That's the medieval game with no magic and none of that stuff.
Here's one from Cooper B613. Do you think the reboot of Ratchet & Clank will do well? Considering it's going up against some big games in April like Dark Souls 3, Quantum Break, and Uncharted 4. It's also launching at $40 rather than a normal $60 retail game.
I think it'll do okay.
I don't think it's going to do well. Matt and I actually had this discussion off camera last week, I believe, before the show. I don't think it's going to do very well. Matt does.
I think it's a different audience, what you're after with a lot of those other games. And there will be some nostalgia surrounding it because it is kind of a remake of the original, and Ratchet's not a dick now.
I think that's why it's going to hurt it, though, is because it is just a remake.
Yeah, but just
a pretty remake. Drastic, don't get me wrong, it is pretty drastic, but...
I think all you got to do is run that thing on TV and commercials, and people are going to look. I mean, it looks like a Warner Brothers cartoon, brought to life, and it's just, I think it's going to appeal. People are going to jump in on it. It's going to be cheaper than, it's $40. It's not full price, and then I think maybe it'll have a boost as it piggybacks on the movie. Because I think the movie's going to do okay.
Yeah, they pretty much came out day and date with the film and the game, so.
So I think it'll be fine. I'm sure Sony knows what they're expecting, and I think they'll get what they're expecting.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it just because I like Ratchet and Clank, and I'm glad to see more of them, even if it's the first one again.
So W. Matthew was like, just say it. There are a lot of Nintendo fanboys in the press. LOL.
You ain't wrong.
All right, so one more question, but there's so many here, so we apologize in advance if we didn't get to your question, and maybe somebody asked a really awesome question and we overlooked it, but let's see. Yep, Kingdom Come Deliverance.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if we can find one more. Steam group. I didn't know there was a Sifted Steam group. You got to invite me to this Sifted Steam group. That's pretty funny.
I don't think I have you on Steam, actually.
You don't have me? I'm Denfire, just like everywhere else, by the way, on Steam.
I looked you up, but you had like 2 friends.
That's probably me.
That's you?
Yeah, I don't really have any friends on Steam. I play most of my games on console, so.
All right.
And actually, I had my
There's a bunch of Denfires.
Yeah, I had my account private for like a long time because I had reviewed something where I needed to have it on private, and I forgot to go back and turn it off, and it was literally private for like 2 years or something like that. So yeah, I totally messed that up. Okay, here's the last question.
I guess the Steam group was just made during this show.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. I don't feel so bad now. Here's from J. Reed Vic 7. Shane Matt, do you feel like it's better or worse for games industry and messaging that it seems like everything's moving away from E3 and towards smaller in-house community events? So basically, do you think EA's thing was a good idea?
We'll see. I mean, for EA, I don't think it matters. They have the money and the clout to get their message out however they want to get it out. In terms of like the littler guys, I guess it's a balance between how much it costs versus what exposure you get. Because I know I've discovered some things I would never have seen otherwise at E3 just by walking around and tried to get that word. I used to be the one that was in charge of all the hidden gem segments on G4, and I would walk around and try to find the stuff that no one else had. Well, not no one else, because all the sites would find that stuff. Yeah. Everybody has their expert, but stuff that like wasn't on our rundowns, things that were not like in the purview of the big 6 or the big 8 publishers. Things that I knew wouldn't make it on our air if I didn't bring it to them and say, hey, we should put, whatever this was on the air. So I wonder, does that matter anymore? Because now everything is so easy to get to people through various social media outlets. Like, does it make sense to spend the money to even try to do that anymore? I don't know if it does. I love E3, but if it becomes decentralized, it will become decentralized because everybody is finding that is successful to get away from that model.
I think it's bad for everybody. I think it's bad for EA. I think it's bad for E3. Not having the leading third-party publisher in the entire industry at E3 is egg on the face of the ESA. No matter what they tell you, don't believe it. It's egg on its face, and it hates the fact that EA is not on the show floor. It's just a bad look. Hopefully they filled that big empty void when you first walk in with somebody else. Be there. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see who actually takes that spot. I'm guessing Activision moves up and takes it. They've always been in the back of that room right behind EA for years.
But it's just going to be weird because like Activision's booth for years and years has just been a giant wall.
Yeah.
With no frills, no nuts. So are they going to revamp that?
Like a real booth? Yeah.
Right. Well, because that's the thing is like people, these companies keep these booths for years and years.
Yeah.
So, like, is Activision going to revamp his booth just because it moved up front? I don't think so.
I doubt it.
Certainly not with this short notice.
Yeah. And the reason it's bad for EA is because E3 is the one chance that you have to speak to all the journalists. And look, I get it. Like with YouTube and Twitch, the impact of the traditional press has definitely diminished a little bit. But you cannot replace, like, the guy coming from Germany's biggest newspaper to cover E3, seeing your products, going back to Germany, writing a story about your product, and that going out to everybody who reads that newspaper in Germany.
That was kind of my take on it originally, too, but then you said that those guys were going to go wherever they have to go to see these things anyway, so it didn't matter.
No. That's the kids. The kids are going to go. They're going to get the YouTubers to go there with their capture gear and whatever.
That's certainly what I'm worried about is, like, are you going to get the German CNN guy or the Portuguese MSNBC guy to cross the street?
Yeah. Every block farther from the convention center that event is going to cut off another % of people from going to EA's event. And look, the truth of the matter is, like, these fan events or these influencer events, basically events for YouTubers and Twitch streamers to come, those YouTubers and Twitch streamers are going to cover that stuff anyway. Like, does it matter if you have, like, 500 people streaming from your event at once, or does it really make a difference? Do you just need 4? Like, like, not everybody, there's not enough people to go around to watch all those live streams. You're just kind of diluting the message at that point. So I don't think it's a good idea from anyone's perspective. I'm sure EA will do a great job with its event. It always does. Their production company that produces their events, it does a great job. I'm sure the access will be better to, like, typical people who maybe couldn't get into E3 because they're not in the industry. But I think if you're just looking at the health of the industry in general and the health of Electronic Arts as a publisher, I think it's a mistake to leave E3. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Maybe it doesn't go very well and people don't show up at their little private thing in the numbers that they had hoped for and they come back to E3 next year. They haven't left the ESA, by the way, which is a really important distinction. They're still a part of the ESA. They're just not participating in E3 and paying them gobs of money for a little bit of floor space.
They're just deciding we're going to go do our own thing.
Yep.
Everyone else is going to dinner. Well, we were going to have a sandwich.
Yep.
So...
All right, that's it for GameFace episode 38. As always, to our European live stream watchers, we appreciate it very much. Thanks to everybody for all the great questions. And once again, we apologize we couldn't get to everyone's questions. I saw a lot of questions in here, just skimming it really quickly. I saw E3. We'll give you our E3 plan whenever it's ready. Just so you know, we will be doing the press conferences. We'll be hanging out with you guys for that stuff. The rest of our coverage is we're still working on it. When we have that information, we'll give it to you. So, still got a couple months to go. E3's not quite here, but we are...
It's 4 months out.
We are just starting to think about it already. So, yeah, we'll have a plan for E3, and we'll share it with you guys when we're ready to. So, shouldn't be too much longer. We'll start to figure it all out. But as always, thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. Everybody have an awesome night. GameFace is up and out.